Good evening and welcome to the Norfolk Board of Selectmen's meeting of Tuesday, February 26th. My name is Jim Lehan. To my right is Mr. Rob Garrity. To my left is Mr. Scott Bugby. To his left, Jack Hathaway, our town administrator. And to his left, Marion Harrington, our executive assistant. I need to remind everyone that this meeting is being both audio and video taped. Mr. Hathaway, would you read the agenda, sir?
Happy to. First order of business, we have the moderator, C.C. Van Tynen, to talk about town meeting procedure bylaws. At 7:15, we will review the liquor policies. At 7:30, discussion of the open space trails at Paddocks and Corrals. 8 p.m., we have Cindy Andrade from the CPC to talk about the Gumps Farm Community Park, followed by the town administrator report, including budget and town meeting warrants. Action items, consider a request from Norfolk Fine Wines and Spirits. Discussion items, including Old Town Hall, status of the truck exclusion, and acceptance of minutes.
Thank you. CC, would you be kind enough to join us?
Oh, you want me up there?
Oh, absolutely, Madam Moderator. You're used to the microphone. Before we do begin that, I have neglected to do this a couple of meetings, and I do not want to forget it, but the three of us, along with Mr. Hathaway, attend the Mass Municipal Association meeting in Boston every year, and it's a meeting of all of the selectmen and town administrators from all over the state, as well as mayors and what have you, and the governor's there as well. One of the events that's there is a 6th grade essay contest, and it's a very interesting process. 117 communities participated in it 2 years ago, I believe, Jack. The first place winner was a Norfolk student. Last year, the second place winner was a Norfolk student. This year, a third place winner was a Norfolk student. And we think that's pretty special. Just to make the top 3 out of 115, 120 communities that submit articles or submit essays is pretty special. So I wanted to congratulate Sydney. I hope I pronounced this correctly. Sydney Gooden, G-U-D-E-N. I hope that's right, for having finished in the top 3 in the state. That's just a wonderful accomplishment. So I did not want to let that go unrecognized, so thank you. Cece, how are you?
Fine.
Thank you for, I know you had all kinds of conflicts tonight, so
Take one,
thanks for squeezing us in here.
I managed to cancel a couple, so if you need
Okay. Well, we'll try not to keep you too long. What we wanted to talk about was we've been thinking about some of the town meeting procedures that we voted in, I think, in 2008. And they were designed to sort of streamline and expedite the process of how we communicate within town meeting. And we've had 5 years of experience now in terms of how they have worked. And I'll speak for me. I've had feedback from folks that are frustrated a little bit with the fact that they're limited to only being able to speak twice during the course of the meeting. And speaking again for me personally, I kind of share that frustration. I think town meeting is, I'd rather spend more time and have opportunity to give more information than be concerned about the process as opposed to the information that's shared. So it's just personal view. And you did not, you've inherited this, but
not personally offended by this.
You are the moderator, and I have really a great faith in the moderator's ability to control the conversation. That if it's being dominated or out of perspective or anything or off the topic, and you have demonstrated that, you don't have any trouble getting people back in line. So I think that makes it even more opportunistic for folks to have more opportunity for input. So let me ask Mr. Garrity his views.
Just have heard, we've all heard from people, they like the new stuff, they don't like some of the new stuff, and I've just heard from a couple of the old timers who had been to long number of town meetings that they felt a little stifled with some of the new rules. And the way the rules are written, there's some leeway in there, I suppose, so we could accommodate people. Like, for instance, on the 2-person rule, you can get up a third time as long as you say it's okay to address a misstatement or a question or something like that. But being on the committee that came up with these rules, so I'm not offended either about changing things. So I think it just feels like it could be loosened up a little and encourage a little more debate. But what do you think? I mean, you see a different have a different point of view than the rest of us.
I was curious what Scott has to say.
Well, I didn't get people coming up to me about the number of times you could speak. I mean, my only concern was just the lack of people there. It's nothing to do with moderator, or maybe it has to do with the policies, but I just find it troubling and sad that I think last time we had, 100 people total. So that's my biggest concern,
Well,
how do we get more people to the meeting?
Interestingly
Which is
enough,
not just maybe-
interestingly enough, I was under the assumption that town meeting attendance had gone down. And I went to the source of all knowledge, our clerk, and the clerk informed me that my assumption was wrong. And gave me the data, and town meeting attendance has been pretty consistent.
Actually, town meeting attendance is up, in case
okay.
anyone was really interested. Because I know that the last time that this issue came up was last fall, and I was asked to meet with you guys early before some meeting because you guys were concerned that town meeting attendance was down because we were stifling speech, and could I please come? And so that's why that printout was made, because I was curious to see if it was true. It was not true, and none of you all showed up. So here we are again. And yet again, the issue comes up. Scott is saying it's because his issue with the bylaws is because there's a lack of people at town meeting, and he's misinformed. I think if there are people who are not attending town meeting, it's because the town warrant is no longer mailed. And I think that I'm mystified how that passed town meeting, but it was town meeting's decision.
There was bitter complaints about it.
Well,
but they lost.
But they lost.
We agree.
I think there are, and I understand now we're trying to fix it with the postcard, but from my own perspective, and I know I'm taking a hard left here, and I apologize, but from my own perspective, as a person who's attended town meeting for years, a town meeting wasn't on my radar. It wasn't as though I thought, the Tuesday before or Tuesday after spring election will be town meeting. I wonder what'll be on the warrant. I knew town meeting was happening when the warrant showed up in my mailbox. The big, thick, not some postcard that looks like, so whatever, I digress. But in any event, as far as the argument that town meeting, the stifling of speech has resulted in a reduction in attendance, it's false. That being said, when I ran for moderator back whenever the heck that was, a few years back, 2 years, 3 years ago, 2010 was the first year I was moderator, Springtown meeting. One of the things that I had indicated was that I would continue what Dan Winslow had wrought, for lack of a better term. They are not my bylaws. I did not write them. I don't own them. I have no ownership. I don't feel sad that people are poking fun at them, or they're not that you are, but even if they were, I wouldn't feel a sense of dismay. I think that they make moderating easier because while you will tell me that I can control people, and it's true, if there is unlimited or arguably unlimited amount of time that folks can come up to the microphone, and I limit people, then there will be sure to be people complaining to you that I picked a side. So I will tell you now that if I were to be the moderator at a town meeting where there was no bylaw, that unless somebody, and it's going to take me a minute or two to figure out if that somebody's really gone off their rocker, unless somebody's saying something completely inappropriate, name calling or whatever, I'm not going to stop them. I don't have a right to stop them. I don't have a directive to stop them, and that's okay, but that's what you want, and so that's what you'd be putting towards town meeting. So my opinion is that 5 minutes for your first time at the microphone, 3 minutes at your second time at the microphone with a third bite at the apple if you want to correct something. If you are speaking for an article, you get unlimited time to answer the questions put to you for an article. And every time there's a motion within the article, you get the same 2 new bites. You get another 8 whole minutes for every time somebody comes up and wordsmiths with a motion to amend. You have to decide the motion to amend. There's your 8 minutes. And then once the new motion's before you, you've got yet another 8 minutes. Arguably, you could, whatever 3 times 8 is, I don't know. I went to law school for a reason. So that's why I like the bylaws. I am one person. I'm the moderator. I'm not a select person. So I'm just telling you what I think. And what I think is that it would be great to get the warrant sent out again. But that's just as a citizen. I think you'd get more butts in seats, as they say. Nobody's complained to me and it may be because people are reluctant to complain to me. They're afraid of me.
It's often me.
So maybe that's true. I know I heard one complaint the last time, but it was a person had been shouting things from the audience, and it was last Springtown meeting because it was in the middle school, and they began shouting things from the audience, and I shut them down because it's not the Jerry Springer show ever, even if you change the bylaw. And they were out in the hallway complaining that I treated people like children, and I guess they're lucky that I didn't see them because I would have told them, if you act like children, everyone will treat you like children. Other than that, nobody's complained to me, but that doesn't mean that there aren't complaints out there. I'm not disavowing that there have been complaints. So that's it.
Well, I personally share your view on the warrant. It should be more that. I think we've lost a connect with the community when we stop doing that.
I think there's a portion of the community who don't even, maybe other than people who walk around with their phone everywhere, there's a portion of the community who don't rely on the internet for their information, and that are really being disenfranchised
Absolutely.
without the warrant being said. It's a reminder. You can read it. I mean, I would walk around and make notes, and you'd get a chance to read it slowly and figure out where the hidden thing that you don't like is.
I think we've already mentioned this to Jack before last time meeting that we really want to start mailing it again.
You're going to have to change the bylaw again,
The
right?
advisory boards just said no. I mean, we took out the requirement to do it, but the advisory board is going to do it without a requirement. I mean, they're going to just do it.
Does it need to be something in the budget?
Yeah.
Yes,
About
it does.
$8,000 or something, like the whole.
The postage?
I don't think it was
No,
that
it wasn't
much.
that much.
I mean, when we had 86 articles or something, it was expensive, but.
I would, if I wouldn't disagree. I think just for point of clarification, my reason for concerns over the 2 time really wasn't for lack of attendance. It was frustration for being able to communicate. So
No, I was speaking of Scott's argument at that point.
But from my perspective, what I have heard is just frustration in not being able to get sufficient information or engage in the process of getting information. And I understand your point. You add 3 minutes here, 5 minutes there, you could be here all week.
Well, and candidly, and I apologize for interrupting you, you have unlimited time. You, the person who, editorial you, the person who's introducing the article or is the person who's been charged with answering questions like CPC, somebody's put forward an article. They have unlimited time as long as they come to the meeting that's 2 weeks in advance and ask for a time. They have the right to ask for 15, 20 minutes and PowerPoint presentations and all those things. And sometimes they don't bother coming.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is when you engage in the process. And if you make the assumption that people are informed before they show up, we both know that's an assumption that just isn't going to fly. So people come to the meeting, especially when you get into zoning articles, which are confusing just intuitively to people. People that deal with them all the time are confused by zoning articles. And there are disconnects sometimes to these articles. And I think we've recognized that the last meeting, nothing to do with the moderator, we my own personal view, and I think shared by others, is we didn't do a good job of communicating what the methodology was behind that packaging of zoning articles. And when they're viewed individually, people lost the fact that they were connected.
Yep.
And that's
some
a mistake.
passed and some didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's our fault. We didn't think through how to present this in a way that people understood what we're doing. And when you change something on town floor, even though it in terms of actual implications it's small, in terms of how it's perceived, it's huge. When you go from 50 units to 75 units and so on, without understanding
two car
that it's limited.
spaces to 1.375
It's a
car
ridiculous
spaces.
conversation to have in town meeting. Total waste of time. Yeah, exactly. Very good example of it. So
I hear you.
I don't know how to wordsmith. I don't know how to wordsmith it, but I don't know how others feel. But I'd like to find a way to tweak that somehow protects your concern, where you don't be perceived as showing any bias, and I do understand that. To yet allowing people to continue to ask questions or to engage in the process if they honestly don't understand some things. And so when you limit them to only being able to come up twice, that sometimes, because an answer may prompt another question or another issue or another concern. And so, I got to, hey, you go up and say this, and so on. And it's not what I want people engaged and being able to be informed. And I know we all do. So that's just my frustration with it. And that's what I've heard from people. But your point's a valid one. You don't want this to be an endless tirade you know,
Well, you know,
we've got about,
not
I mean,
that
I've got a
most people-
25-year history with
most
Norfolk
people
town meetings,
aren't
and I've seen some
tyrannical,
endless
but there's
tirades.
certainly there's the person that you will never, ever, 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 ever see, wouldn't recognize, and an issue comes up that impacts them, and they and 72 of their favorite best friends show up for that one article.
Well,
and they will
we know
talk
that's never happened.
Forever, and get very feisty. So
I know.
but, you know, and I don't know that you need to, if you decide that that's what you want to do, I don't know that you need to wordsmith it tonight, right? You're just voting up or down whether or not you're going to put a bylaw change, another article on
Yeah.
the warrant,
Yeah.
and then you can get to
Wordsmith it at another
wordsmithing
time.
it at another time.
Your input.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
just
Hathaway.
want to add a slightly different point of view. I mean, I have heard, and I think I was with one of you when we were in the clerk's office talking to a seasoned town meeting member, participant, who did talk about being frustrated with these newer rules. I've also heard the opposite from some people who are you know, we're tired of the constant up and down of repeat, you know, one or two people who dominated the microphones, you know, got up 4 or 5 times each time. So as much as I think there's been some negative, I think there's also been a fair amount of positive out of this too. And you know, I'm not saying we shouldn't tweak it, but I also don't want to necessarily go back to the old rules of letting somebody get up 8 times for an article.
Well, I mean,
Did you ever go to town meeting under Frank Gross?
Oh, yeah.
He would shut people down right away if you were being repetitive or not adding. And he did, you know, but
Occasionally. I thought he was...
well, I think
What
there
if they're
is
not being repetitive?
there is language in here.
what's wrong with that?
There is language in here that says that
Really?
you can't. Hold on, let me just finish the statement, and then we can have this
Can you limit
ongoing
debate over
tirade here. I'm the moderator here today. There is language in here that says that no one can speak for a second time until everyone has spoken for a first time that chooses to do so, and you can incorporate that into the second time as well. And you could put language in there. I'm thinking out loud that just that if there is an additional question after 2 appearances at the microphone, if the moderator deems it to be consistent with what has been said before, ends the conversation. Something like that.
But doesn't that go back to being such a judgment call as opposed to a point of fact that you're now running up against, well, you know, you live on that side of the tracks, and so you sided with all of the people who live on that side over, you know, you live across from whatever farm. I know, yeah.
For judgment calls, that's why we let people.
But see, I guess I don't see that the issue you do.
No.
Because to me, that's what a moderator
And
does.
tonight, that's not my place.
That's the definition of a moderator to me. I mean, your role is to control and manage the process. I mean, that's your job, or the moderator's job.
According to Robert's Rules of Order or town meeting
Well,
times, which does
procedures,
not
sure,
say
there-
that I
there-
get to determine whether or not if it you know, how many times someone's been up if it's too many.
Well,
Just
it,
as
but
long
it,
as
it
it's-
does
if
have
it's
language.
germane
There
to
is
the
language.
article.
There is language both in here and in Robert's Rules of Order that allow you the privilege of deeming it to be inappropriate or beyond the scope of what we were talking about.
Sure, but if it's germane, we're gonna be here a while.
But that's your
What's
discretion.
the problem? If it's germane, if you're having a germane
Right.
conversation, and unfortunately there's one person who has 46 bits of information that are factual, germane, and important to consider when you're passing a bylaw, I don't see the problem with letting them have 46 bytes of information to get out. That's the information process. That's how the rest of town meeting learns, when somebody who knows what they're talking about says something. And then when...
And on the 4th night of town meeting, when the 3 people who are still interested are sitting in the audience,
It'll be
because
easier to count
the
the
person
vote.
we all know is sitting and writing down like their 48th and 49th and 50th germane point to bring up.
We haven't gone past 2 in ages. I mean, it's not like that. We, you know, and we hardly, frankly, I mean, the town meetings have gotten shorter and shorter.
Everybody breathes a sigh of relief.
No, because the number of articles are down too.
Yeah.
You know, we don't ask people things anymore.
Well, there's no right or wrong answer to this. mean,
I
you know,
understand that.
yeah.
You asked my opinion.
Yep. That's why we wanted you here.
So vote away. Do you want me to get out of this seat? Can I go back to my seat over there?
You certainly may.
Thank you.
Make a motion to move the question.
I'm staying. I said I canceled my stuff, so I'm staying until you guys vote.
I moved the question, that's fine.
So, all right, what do you think? Let me start over here, Mr. Bugby.
Do I think,
Should we consider trying to make some modifications to any of the town meeting procedural rules to bring forward for town meeting consideration? We don't have to define it specifically tonight, but we could, I won't use the word placeholder because Marion will have cardiac arrest.
right,
But, you know, we could clean it up over the next period of time.
yeah, I mean, if it helps, to Rob's point, if it helps get informed discussions, like I said, it should go on, people should speak, and/or it gets more people to come. I think that's a good idea. I don't know, the devil's in the details and what people
Always
want.
is, but anyway.
I came in saying yes right now, and I've listened to the moderator. And town meeting's not our meeting. You know, we go because we are getting instructions for the rest of the time when town meeting's not around. So I'm really a traditionalist on that. So if this isn't I have a concern about going too far forward without the moderator feeling that we need to make some changes. I personally think we need to loosen up a bit on things. So I would support, with sorrow in my heart, putting a thing on to change the at least the 2-time rule.
Well,
Soften it up.
I came to the meeting as well thinking that it had to change. I've thought that way for some time, but I do fully understand the moderator's concern. And I think it's, it's easier to go from where we were to where we are than it is to go from where we are back to where we were.
Yeah.
I think it makes it more difficult for you because it does clearly present the situation where you have to play that role. Whereas if it's an accepted practice, as it has been in town for forever before that, it wasn't the issue that it might be now when we go backwards. So I think that's worthy of consideration. If we could find that middle ground, and I don't know, wordsmithing is the trick, but if we could find that middle ground that gave the moderator some opportunity to shut it down that wouldn't be viewed with bias, which may not be possible, and yet loosen it up, I'd be all for that. Because I do think it is a forum where we need the opportunity to inform people.
Yeah, when I went back and I looked in the bylaw, this is why I said that somewhat inarticulate thing in the beginning. When I went back and actually reread before a meeting, there is a lot of leeway in there for the moderator to allow a third, fourth, fifth time to get up and correct a misunderstanding. Or see, my problem coming into this was an experience where you have people saying declarative statements, which are not questions, but are patently false. So you can't really get up and say, I'm correct, I'm answering the question. There was no question, there was a declarative statement, yellow men live on Mars, you know? And my frustration with, under the rules as I envisioned them, or thought they were, I couldn't get up and say, no, there are no yellow men on Mars. I'm correcting you. But it looks like there's wiggle room in there. Is that the way the moderator would read that?
That was my interpretation, is that somebody came across, you know, the stage, we see people tippy-toeing across the stage and whispered in my ear, that was like a total bill of goods, that I have the opportunity to be like, whoa, people can get up and dispute that.
But where do you see that set?
Unless otherwise approved by the moderator, no person shall speak more than twice, except to correct a mistake or misstatement, or to answer a question, or to raise a point of order. So I was thinking to correct a mistake or misstatement leaves a lot of room for the moderator to
But how
allow.
about some facts haven't been fully disclosed?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would struggle with that in that if it's just a debate. I mean, if you've been to Mars and you know if the person are yellow or green.
See, I guess I agree with that. I think the moderator, I would hope that the moderator would always allow us to correct misinformation.
Yeah.
But what this doesn't address is the lack of information.
Right.
And
Perhaps there's a way to
because
slide
there may
something
be
like that.
there may be a situation where, let's say, it's not we're not the sponsors of the article,
Right.
and there's been an ongoing debate, and someone makes a comment that is correct, but it sort of unlocks the door of additional data, for lack of another term. And we've spoken twice. We can't, under this, I would say we're not allowed to speak a third time.
I think there should be a blanket allowance for selectmen to speak as much as they want.
I don't think anybody want that. Yeah, that'd never get through town meeting.
So we have these
Okay.
meetings for.
Well, why don't we just agree to see if we can come up with some wordsmithing that might, and if we can't, we won't go forward.
Did we vote to close the warrant already?
We did not,
All right. Okay. So you got another one.
so.
I move to place a warrant, an article on the warrant to amend.
You're getting your
town
vote?
meeting proposals.
Do I have a
Town
second?
meeting
Second.
procedures.
Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Keeping in mind, we'll pull it back later if we do anything we think is smart.
Madam Moderator, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Hathaway.
We could skip over the second item and go to the third item, which is the discussion of trails, since we're,
Okay, yeah, it's about that time. Okay. Well, this is one, I guess, that, for whatever reason, we now own. This was a punt, and we fell on the ball, I guess. Who is joining us, Howard or Walter, or? Well, one or both, or whatever you'd like. I mean, what we're here to do tonight is to discuss the location of the trails. And long overdue, I guess. I have had a chance to walk it recently, sloshing through the snow. I don't know, have you gentlemen had a chance?
I walked it last year before
Okay.
the.
Have you had a chance?
No.
Okay.
Over there.
This is, well, come on up, guys. Gentlemen, please join us.
Can't project this. Can you put that on the screen?
Yeah, they've been given to us by the planning board. And just a point of reference, this is Concom land. Howard, you're probably not maybe orient this. Jack, help me with this for a second.
Howard, how are you?
Good, how are you? That's it. There we go. This is the
Horse farm?
the horse farm here, Howard.
Yeah, this plan that you have is an accurate plan, though.
It is not an accurate plan.
No, it's not, absolutely not.
What's inaccurate?
That was a very early on plan that was, excuse me, just put this down. That was not ever even close to being approval. I brought the ones that are part of the plan set that was approved and marked.
These are the ones approved by the planning board?
Absolutely. I don't know who gave you that one.
Planning board.
Oh, thanks. I can stand up.
These all,
Walter.
okay.
I can stand up, Walter.
This is different.
This is the plan set that was approved and accepted by the town of Norfolk. With this set is the other side of all of the trail system that's in Rentham. And
We'll
what took
leave that
place
to them.
that corresponds to the approval,
Same thing.
which I have here also. And I
Sorry, Walter.
Or turn this, maybe.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. So, at any rate, this is the plan set that you can see marked approved planning board. And this is what should be in their file.
Okay.
This, yes,
Okay.
That's all right.
Yep,
so,
come join the party.
so this was the special permit that was approved.
Right, that I've seen.
Okay, and these are sections that have any reference to the plans here that I highlighted. And I
May I?
have 3 of each.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
So
thanks. Thanks, Walter.
you can,
Jeff, do you want to join us in this discussion, or you want to listen? Jeff Palumbo from the planning board, chairman of the planning board. Okay. Didn't mean to put you on the spot, but you made the mistake of walking in.
So I highlighted the
We knew you were
sections that
coming.
pertain to any trails or anything in these matters.
Okay.
And then that is part of this special permit that I have here, that I just took out for the sake of having to go through the whole thing.
Well, okay. So
That's the special permit.
show me the trails,
The
the existing trails.
The existing trails, as far as this plan shows, is just the one stone path that we have on the property, which starts right here,
Mm-hmm.
it goes around, and then stops here. That's what you have. And then the trails in question that were proposed was going out to Maple Street, and an access that we provided, because right now, I want to make sure I keep catching this, the people are going across private landowners' property to get to the current, well, you own both parcels, but the originally owned parcel of Norfolk, which was a 40-acre parcel. They were going across these people's property. So we provided this access here from the new road, so now they can actually get into the property, and there are already trails out in this whole system. People currently and still are using this, because this piece here has not been built because it was never okayed to be built. Part of the direction that we've asked for on several occasions, I know Jim was part of it, we've walked this site at least twice, perhaps even more, and could never get anybody to say, okay, where do we want the trails? And we were required by the definitive plan permit to have a public meeting, which we had with this board. We already did that, because we were required within a month of approval to do that. We did that. You, at this direction here, said there would be one member of the Board of Selectmen, there would be one member of the Planning Board, one member of the Conservation Commission that would view the site, walk it, determine where the trails were to be. We did that. We went out there. We even walked it in snowshoes and different things.
Yep.
And nobody could ever get back to us. We've requested it several times, and it got to the point that we didn't want it to. This is the actual definitive plan approval.
Is this the same thing I have or different?
No, it's a different thing.
Did that happen with the Board of Selectmen?
Yes.
Who was it?
Who came from the Board of Selectmen? I honestly don't remember this.
I don't think
I don't believe
I
that
was never
occurred.
Was it me?
One of the properties.
I don't believe that occurred. You weren't on the board, and you didn't go, and I didn't go. So,
I don't think Jim T.
and I don't think Jim Tomaszewski went. So I don't think that's happened.
And if it was to happen, there's
Let us work through this.
Okay. So then if it didn't happen, it was certainly requested, we could probably provide you with the request that we requested that meeting be
I'm
set.
not questioning. I remember the conversation, but it didn't happen.
Okay. And we certainly have had multiple members of different boards out to the site to determine where the trails have to be.
Now, you do recall conversations where this board felt quite strongly that the trails that were on open space that belonged to the town were not to be used to the benefit of the horse farm.
Oh, absolutely, Dory. Strongly, because you have a bylaw. I had a bylaw at the time that said no horses are allowed on any town-owned property, in fact. So we revised all our plans, took all the trails off because they said that the direction of either, the permits actually say it's direction of the planning board, but nevertheless, that trails were going to be determined by the town of Norfolk and not us, and we said fine. And we revised our plans. That's why this plan set was done, not showing any proposed trails, because no proposed trails were ever agreed on by the town of Norfolk. And it wasn't going to be put on any plans. And in fact, I believe a $10,000 deposit was made to the town to ensure that these trails would be built, because we didn't want it to hold up Pulte with any restrictions of the planning board saying that it wasn't complete. And that was agreed upon by I believe the planning board. And somebody has that $10,000 surety.
Now, Mr. Chairman?
Please.
Yeah. So is the idea that the trails that are going to would be built to this standard?
Those are the different entrances, and there are notes on here. If you want to read these, you're certainly welcome to, but it makes reference to the trails and so forth. I mean, we got into so many discussions, and it was actually quite surprising to me, because very little discussion was about the roads or the infrastructure or anything like that. I think 95% of the whole planning board was trails.
Well, I think the standards for roads are pretty well documented. I think trails is a new thing for us, so.
Okay.
Can I put these two together? Because this, even though you say it's not the final version, it's better to look at where these trails are. So that would be this one, right? Yes, okay. That's not much of a drive. Am I got that right, Jack? So now we're looking at apples and apples.
Yeah.
Okay. So what about, can you see these, Howard? What about these trails is incorrect, that's indicated here?
Well, number one, you have town-owned property, and then you have private property, which
We
is,
know that.
okay, so what is the question you're asking me?
Well, this map indicates two things. It indicates, as you can see here, existing footpath trails, which is the trail that's here, and then proposed trails, which are all the dotted lines that you see here.
Correct.
Are you still proposing this?
Now, is
No.
that not right?
Not, all of those were removed once,
So you're not proposing to go to Maple Street off the back of the property anymore?
it's at the discretion of the town. Clearly, the town, for whatever direction we got turned around, couldn't make a decision to go with any trails. So that's what we wound up with.
Jeff, you have any?
You know, I have an opinion on certain trails. The project it came before the planning board, actually before I, began my tenure with the planning board. So we're talking about over 3 years ago. I think it was just prior to me coming to the planning board,
Correct.
I think is the timetable. So I was not present for public hearings and such. I was on the Board of Health at the time. So if we talk about specific trails, I can give you some opinion. I have gone out there to, I guess, form an opinion, but the planning board hasn't taken it up as current business because we're viewing it as an item for the Board of Selectmen at this point in time, but happy to participate, if we get into specific trail discussions to the best of my ability. I'll certainly do that.
Well, I thought we were dealing off of an accurate plan, but I guess we're not.
What you have there, Jim, is, and I brought it, is this plan set.
October 2009.
This plan set that was submitted as the first go-around. I mean, if you look at that plan that you're looking at right now, Jim, that we had initially proposed parking areas and everything else on that property, and everyone, to my dismay, said, that's not what we want.
Well, just a question, unless I'm reading it wrong. This plan that you're saying is the right plan is dated in July 2009.
There's revisions to that. You have to go to the end of the plan.
Revisions here, so you got all these
Is that
revisions.
dated?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it even states on it, the last revision was per planning board review.
2010, okay.
So, right now, as far as a horse trail, you're just thinking about the thing that will go around the edge of the farm?
That currently exists.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's not on, we don't own that land anymore. You own it, so it's on
Well, which land are you talking about? We own now.
all the open space.
Yeah, what,
That would make sense.
here or here? Now, we've always owned that.
You always own that, you own, you own everything here.
Mhm.
This is, the town line goes all the way over to here.
Mhm.
This is the town line. This, and you already own that.
The planning board hoping for more trails created on this space?
There's actually more trails probably on this space than there is here.
I mean, anything to do with the planning board in terms of what the planning board had hoped to achieve goes back
Many
at
years.
least 3 years.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have an opinion on some of these things, having walked the property, but, you know, at one point in time, I think it was put to, you know, the pen to paper in terms of one of those plans, but what's transpired since that time as far as any learning and any other input, I think, you know, that's what I'd be interested in knowing is, you know, what's happened since that point in time. You know, has this come before the Board of Selectmen, you know, over the past 3 years since that plan was developed?
Well, as Mr. Hathaway pointed out, when this document you gave us references a master plan, and it references October 2009, which is why I suspect,
Yeah.
so that we don't make, so that Betsy is, you know, Betsy gave us what this references.
Right, but that 2009 was the starting point, and then the revision dates that you have on here are what preceded that.
Okay, well, where do we go from here? I mean, our concern is, I think, well, I won't speak for the board. My concern is that we ensure that there's an adequate buffer for the few homes that abut this property in Norfolk. That our obligation is to our residents, and we want to be sure that we don't encroach on their privacy. So, yet, open space should be advantaged by the community.
Absolutely.
Not by a private enterprise, but by the community. So we need to ensure that the trails, and this states that, but we need to be sure that the trails maintain, as it states here, an adequate distance from the butters.
And Jim, one of the things we did when, one of those couple of site visits, and we actually flagged the proposed trails, and we walked them with the various board members that came out there. And we said, now somebody has to give us direction on
Right.
what to do.
I went out there a couple of days ago, and, you know, there could have been flags, and they could have
Oh,
been covered.
it's been a
or
long
they could have
time.
been gone, so, you know, but I walked it referencing this map as to what I thought were the trails. And a couple of them, which were proposed, at least on this map, there are no trails. I mean, it's just walking through wilderness at this point. Even though it's snow-covered to a certain degree, you can tell there are no trails.
I mean, don't, let me explain two things first. The Equestrian Center is currently owned by myself and Kathleen Kadurka, who is here with me. The land that we're talking about is all town-owned property now.
Right.
Okay, not owned by us, not owned by Pulte.
We agree.
Okay? The obligation of building these proposed trails that may or may not happen are of Paddock and Corrals, who was Mr. Walter Mailer, and Pulte, who has an interest because they purchased the lots and the ways. So I know where they should go in the best interest of the town, in the best interest of keeping away from abutters.
Where would you suggest then?
I mean, I think
Where should they go?
the two main trails that you need for access to this property would be from Maple Street in, and there's a lower trail that comes right back out to where the little bridge was and the stone walls are.
I know where
That
that
will
is.
bring you right to there. It's not a lot of work to be done. Obviously,
Now, that's a pedestrian trail,
that's a pedestrian trail.
which
Correct.
I think is 6 feet wide.
Correct. I mean, the Equestrian Center has no intention of using any of these trails. Okay, I know your bylaws have changed and say they can, but we, long ago, got by that and made our own access, and
We can leave that one on the table.
We can leave it on the table.
Okay.
The best behind us all. So this one needs to be done. This one needs to be done. Now you bring in the neighborhoods over here that can actually walk and use this property without, this private landowner has probably looked the other way for a number of years that they go across now. And I think for his purpose, that should end and it should come from here. And there are many, many trails in here.
I know there are, yeah.
And then we've set this up so you can get by our equestrian center, which is 24 acres. They don't have to come on our land, and they can walk right through the whole property.
Okay, but you're not suggesting this piece.
This piece, so even since this plan, is now a habitat area. If you looked at the fenced-in area, that's all a 5.5 acre by natural heritage
Right.
habitat area. You could certainly make something, but they only let you cut grass certain times of the year. All right, so that
So
is not.
you're suggesting really then access to this land? We know there are a lot of walking areas in here.
And it brings you out here,
Yeah, to here, and one more access
from here. That brings you back out to here.
brings to here.
These neighborhoods are all linked up already.
Right, I know they are.
So then when you get out into here,
And nothing in here.
I don't think you need it because there are already natural trails that, right about here that bring you down into all of this land. And then there are many, many trails out here. And then you get into the Rentham trails, which are double what you have there.
So, well, this is the shady neighborhood, Shady Road.
Right.
And
That's the shady one,
That's whatchamacallit.
Beaverbrook.
Beaverbrook, right.
So I think there's a little debate about whether or not this trail is actually a suitable trail and whether it's like a wildlife run or.
Or why couldn't the trail, because this is fairly open.
This is swamp.
The swamp only comes to about here, if I remember correctly. About halfway across that property.
It's all of this.
Okay, well, maybe it's hard to tell in the weather I was
Yeah.
walking. It is, so
Okay.
could have been all swamp, I guess. Well, we are concerned about imposing on these neighbors.
But this piece certainly here for a pedestrian way doesn't need much work. There is certainly an animal run. There certainly has been people that have walked through there. And it doesn't need, it's what I call hand work is all it needs. Not machine work or anything like that because you don't want to start disturbing the actual ground.
Scott? Jeff, you guys?
You been down that one, Jeff?
I just want to make sure I'm clear on what you're referring to.
It's not the one that climbs up the ridge. That was a
This is the one that stays right along the edge, right down low.
Okay, so if you're heading down Maple
Mhm.
towards Rentham,
It's on that
you
map.
come to a home, then there's a ravine, and then it drops off, fairly quickly, precipitously, wetlands, and then there's really nothing for several hundred feet.
Isn't it this one right here?
That's correct.
It's that blue line.
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
According to this, that's an existing trail.
Now, when I visited the site, because even though this wasn't official planning board business, I wanted to try to educate myself a bit on it. I didn't see any evidence of a trail either up on the top of the ravine or anywhere close to the top of the ravine. So is the belief that there was a trail down near the wetlands? Is that
Absolutely
basically
there was.
what?
But if that's within 50 feet of the wetland, you can't do anything to it. Never mind machine clearing. You're not supposed to cut
Nope.
down trees.
But you can do hand work, and that's why I said that. Nobody is intending to do any machine work.
So if I could say something, the specifications of the trails require, trail specification approved requires a 6-inch,
Jeff, is it on?
I believe the specification of the trails as they currently are stated on these plans require a 6-inch trench be dug and then filled with stone and then wood chips on top. I think that's what the specifications state.
Yeah. So we can't put our imprimatur on a trail that can't be built. with the
Of course.
Concom's rules.
Alex would prefer a much less aggressive trail construction specification.
What Mr. Mailer has just said was they put different, because the planning board has to put trail standards, things on there. So we put proposed trail standards and so
So
forth.
that they can do a circle.
And then at the meetings that we've had, we said that we don't intend to do any excavation, we intend to just place some wood chips there. That's what was always proposed.
This is what we were whispering about. What's the benefit of having this connection here, really? I mean, other than having another trail.
Mostly access for abutters, people.
But if you have access over here,
Sure. If these people don't mind.
why do you need
All the way
this?
from there. I mean, again, don't get me wrong, we've gone long past this, so don't care if you do 0 or if you do 100 miles of them.
I mean, I can't speak for the planning board, but my own opinion is that should be sufficient. You know, we're putting in sidewalks in terms of having improved access to
I
that,
agree.
that point of entry, if you will, into the facility and to access these trails. That would seem to be sufficient to me.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, we have, and keep in mind, that's why I made it clear, that from the standpoint of the equestrian center, you know, people will use this one stone dust trail that exists, and that's about the extent of it.
Yeah. Now, I can see using, I know we already have some of your money, and using some funding to make sure that these trails here are
Absolutely.
accessible, and that's already town-owned conservation lane, has been for years. So,
And a lot of people, we see the people all the time in the equestrian center, they do use this property.
Take a look at that.
I don't know.
This is
but
the same as
urging
that.
more
This is the
people to
trail
go
that
right
they
next to the
claim is
wetland.
existing.
You're saying it
This
doesn't?
is the issue with the
Then you gotta,
residents right in
you
here.
gotta clean it up.
They don't
You
want a
gotta-
trail, or they want a
you
trail?
can't just-
Well, it's in their backyard,
I mean, I certainly
This is
believe you
across,
could
how many
simplify
acres? How
this.
far is that?
not far.
I'm really, I feel bad that all the issues that took place went up. In fact, I feel you lost a very good chairman at the time of the planning board throughout the results of this, so you know.
Stuck with you.
We get stuck with Jeff.
No, I'm just saying what you had.
You want 4,000, you want 4,375 trails on this property now?
Right.
So, and plus, there's a vernal pool in that other piece of territory right over there.
Okay,
I'd be willing just to leave that piece alone.
I want to. How do you feel?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah,
Work on the trails
People
we
get
got,
access.
make them
All right, wha-
effective.
This is, I understand, our decision. And I know you guys won't argue if you have to do less, so I suspect it will be a
No.
non-confront, there'll be no confrontations here on this one. I agree with Rob. I don't think there's any need to do this. I think it encroaches on this neighborhood. There's no reason or benefit to do that. This is where the focus of the people are gonna go. This is all wet. Let's focus our energies here.
That's fine. And you already have, I just want to be clear, you already have a bunch of trails that are already down in this piece.
Right. So we will keep this untouched.
That's,
Now, I know we have some abutters here. Do you folks have any views or anything different than what we said? Yes, sir. Can you grab a microphone and introduce yourself?
Is it on?
Yeah, it's for the folks at home on TV.
Oh, okay. So my name's Mark Mastriani. I'm with Pulte Homes. So we're the owner of certain lots and the roads and ways and also the permit. And I think I'm here with Mark Camo in my office as well. And the reason we're here is we're building the project and we want to comply with all of the permits and approvals. And, coming out of this meeting, our hope was just to get an understanding from the town on what is to be expected of us to complete the project.
Right.
So
than fair.
whatever, so you guys are making some decisions, and from Pulte's perspective, we're indifferent. Whatever the town ends up choosing and deciding upon is okay with us. I'm hoping that, 'cause I can't see the plans, but if something could be documented as to the direction of the town or the ultimate outcome that's made, that would be helpful for us, so that we have a clear understanding of exactly what the trail requirement of the project will be moving forward.
Very reasonable request. Yeah. Jeff, our understanding is that this is, for better or worse, on our nickel. Is that
believe you're
correct? So if we were to agree to that and say this, we want to leave this untouched, we want to focus on this area for trails, this presents no issue to the planning board.
I mean, there may be members of the planning board that
Well, whether they like or
don't
dislike it.
agree, but
that-
yeah, but there's no
To
issue
Pul-
in terms
to-
of
to Pulte's
procedural
point,
issues.
right. Okay. So we can give them that assurance.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure, and obviously with your planning board experience, you know 10 times better than I do. How do we, at the end of the day, document
Memorialize
this? I
this.
mean, you have people come before you with, and maybe Howard's going to speak up here, but
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I mean, I think some of the things that we've already done is we've actually bounded this property. The concrete bounds are out there. You have this plan to reference, but certainly you're right, Jack, that somebody has to say, yes, we want to focus, and I believe what the board has just said is that we're going to focus on this entrance over here, which will, where the majority of the people access the property now. Well, here, but we want them to access it from town-owned property and not across private property.
Correct.
So you need to address that issue there and make sure that connects to the existing trail system that's already there.
And whatever work is necessary on those trails. To-
Yeah, was there an expectation that some of the existing trails on Norfolk Town land
They're all on
would have
Norfolk.
been, well, there's new Norfolk Town land and old Norfolk, so
Correct,
was
yeah.
there an expectation that some of the trails on the older land would be improved as part of the permit?
I can't answer that.
I'm going to guess no.
I mean,
I don't. I hate to say it, but I don't think we.
Howard may
You want
disagree
to,
with that.
Howard, stay out of this one. I don't think we have the right to do that.
Okay, all right.
We can
Yeah,
check
it does
it,
talk
but I
about
don't think we
trailheads and signage,
I
and
don't
that's
think we
it.
have the right
Okay,
to do
good,
that.
fine.
I mean, to answer Jack's question, although this situation hasn't come up before, one quite like this, my guess would be that he would need to do a minor modification so that it would be documented sufficiently in the decision and whatever plans coincide with the decision. So that's most likely the business that the planning board would take up, so that it's documented properly in terms of the actions of this board.
But the documentation would reflect a definitive decision by this
Jim, I
board.
Correct, correct.
So we're just a point of clarification for these folks, just so that no one leaves with any, even though there may be, say, members on your board that view there should be a different approach to this, that's not up for discussion.
Yeah, and the only question in my mind is if we did opt to pursue, a minor modification to update the documents, if folks were not in full agreement, I would certainly like to think that they would respect the authority of the Board of Selectmen and the decision that's been made, and would vote in favor of the minor modification, because it is a vote that the board has to take. So there may be other ways to approach it if necessary, but I wouldn't be too concerned, given that this is the responsibility of the Board of Selectmen, at least in this town, in terms of trail designation.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I don't see it as being insurmountable, and we'll take it up as soon as possible.
And I'll be glad to attend if you'd like.
We,
Go ahead, Rob.
well, the minutes will reflect that, we should probably take a vote, just so the minutes have something to reflect. And I would put forth a motion that there will be no new trails from the bridge to Maple Street in the portion of land being conveyed to the town.
So it has been conveyed.
That has been conveyed to the town.
As part of the open space plan.
As part of the open space plan.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any
And,
further?
and the contention is that all the other trails are already existing. So you're just putting trailheads at the ends of existing trails.
One trailhead to connect to the existing trails.
And that's it. So we don't really, that's not our purview. What was asked of us was,
Public hearing would help. I mean,
well,
We
this
did
is,
hold that
this is our,
public hearing.
this is our public hearing tonight.
No, it's not.
no, because we haven't done the advertising and.
You didn't,
And
we
this
didn't
is-
advertise?
No, this was never presented as a public hearing. But Marion, did we not do that public hearing?
We did a meeting.
We did a public hearing.
We didn't do the site walk.
We didn't do the site walk, but we did the public hearing. So we've complied with that, with that requirement. I believe we've
check the minutes.
complied with that requirement.
Back and look, Jim.
Yes.
Okay,
So anyway, I have a motion on the floor.
you do. And I have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is a unanimous vote.
I think the only other unfinished business that we had is what brought all this to this head. It was the conservation restriction
Right.
that we have on lot 72.
Mhm.
That was before you to be just signed.
I'm aware of that, yeah.
Okay, so that's the only other business that we have.
When is it possible for you to sign that conservation?
It's been approved by town council and everything, the changes were made.
I've read the document. We don't need to vote. Do we need to vote it? We did vote. We did vote the conservation. Marion, did we not vote that? We did.
I don't think, yeah.
Lot 72, am I
Yes.
right? Is it lot 72? We did vote that.
I don't believe you have. I could be mistaken.
We'll check the minutes, I
We'll
guess.
check. I think we have voted that restriction. But let me get with the chairman of the board. I'll do it tomorrow.
Okay.
If we voted it, we can sign it individually. If we haven't voted it, we'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting to do so. But
I'll check.
I know we had conversations around lot 72. That just, sticks in my mind.
I think the only reason you held up on endorsing it was pending this trail system,
Well, if we held up endorsing it, that means we didn't vote it.
signing or what.
Yeah, I think Howard's right. I don't think you've signed it. I mean, we talked about it
If you
2
didn't
years
vote
ago.
on it, could you vote on it this evening then?
Not,
Could you make a?
at least two of the members haven't
No,
seen it. So.
not without all members having the opportunity to read the document.
Okay.
And a proper posting of the voting.
Right. And that's correct. That's not on the agenda for this evening, so we couldn't vote on it anyway.
Yeah. We can get to it in 2 weeks.
You could put it on the next agenda to be signed.
By March 12th, I think, isn't it, Marion? March 12th is the next, we will put it on the agenda. Yep, we'll do.
Well, you get a birthday present.
Birthday and a conservation restriction just don't seem to go together.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I would note that the street names don't seem to conform with Norfolk policy regarding the historic and/or significant nature of.
I think this board would be more than willing to delegate you as the official negotiator for street names.
Point of order,
We do
that's
have
not
a
on the
street
agenda.
name policy, which tends to be ignored.
I thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Chairman.
Thanks for taking the time to come in this evening.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you. Mark, nice to see you.
You too, Jim.
Uh, 8 p.m.
I think that's the best we can do.
Could have done a lot worse. We could have done worse.
I agree. This
Entrances that
Makes no sense to me.
marked according to the
Let's walk people through a swamp.
makes no sense.
Just asking for trouble.
Yeah, we need that for the.
Okay. Mr. Hathaway,
Do you want to go to the 8 p.m. agenda item with CPC?
that would seem reasonable,
Good.
seeing as it's 8:05.
Trying to keep you right on schedule.
We have the chairperson, Cindy, you want to join us? Thank you for coming in. Nice to see you.
Thank you for having us.
Well, and I know we invited you on late notice, so we're very appreciative.
I did
And good to
put
see you
in-
as well.
Yep, Ian's here as part of this. So I did put in packets tonight for you all. Unfortunately, this master plan piece, which I have, I do not have in a large scale.
You can try to make me
apologize.
blinder.
I know, making everyone blinder, and I would have liked to have been able to put that up. Because it was late notice, Kyle Zick, our landscape architect, did FedEx me overnight plans, but this piece was not among them. And the reason that everyone's looking over and under their glasses,
So I said, "Then bring my meeting off."
You notice we're all wearing them. That's really
I
what's
know,
bad.
that's
You're old.
scary, is
Had some. Jim took them.
Speak for yourself, right?
this is the current layout, and I do have a bigger piece on here that I can pin up, just to point out some
Want me
items.
to pin it up while you're talking?
Maybe,
Sure.
maybe Cindy, we could just take a couple of seconds and just sort of frame for the folks at home what this is all
Where
about.
we are,
Right.
sure. Let me give you the page I want, Jack.
Right. I asked Cindy if she would join us to review with the board because, well, Cindy requested to review with the board the plans for the Gump Recreational Park and new relocation or location of Kids Place 2 or whatever we end up calling it, so to speak.
Right.
And I've been part of the process, so I've got a kind of a head start on it, but
Well,
Cindy has done yeoman's work, as has Ann. They've both done yeoman's work in putting this plan together, working with Kyle, and she wanted to run it by this board to be sure that we understood it and we're in agreement with it.
Right.
And at some point, we have the issue of naming it, which
we have a tentative name, Norfolk Community Park at Gump's Farm, just because we had to put so many letters on a sign as we go out
Right.
to bid, and better to have too many letters than too few
and
letters.
that's just sort of a mutually agreed upon
Right.
starting point. The point of clarification, I guess the naming does actually reside with the Board of Selectmen,
Yes,
just so you all know that.
Rob would be
as
happy.
the Board of Selectmen owns the
Oh,
property.
right.
The reason I actually was talking to Jim recently is that we kind of passed our last hurdle in our planning process, and that was we had to go before the planning board for a special permit because we've always planned all along to have a gravel parking lot here, and that requires a special permit. So the special permit was granted, and we waited the 20 days for appeals, and I went and recorded it at the Registry of Deeds, and that's kind of like the last step before we actually can go out to bid. So I just wanted to keep the selectmen apprised on how things have kind of been tweaked a little bit since the first proposal. And we'll start with the layout. I think if you remember, and I can show it here, the parking originally went across the front of the property with a overflow area, was actually in the front against the road. But when we started doing topo plans, thank you.
It's good.
It's on. Okay. When we started doing topo plans, ledge was cropping up back here. So our consultant Kyle Zick redesigned the parking to be closer to the front and closer to the road with our overflow to the right as you're looking at the Gumps Farm property. That'll, oh, wait, they told me it
It's
was-
on, but the
It is
yellow
on.
light's on.
But I don't have a battery light.
Option 2 is coming up.
Okay. So I guess I'll quickly repeat that. Our original plan called for overflow parking by Rockwood Road with the main parking behind it. Because we identified ledge back here, we moved the regular parking forward, one driveway with overflow parking to the right if you're looking at the property from Rockwood Road. That also, one of the things that brought up then, we changed the driveway, and we now have to take down an oak tree for sight distance. It's an old oak tree. It is diseased. There is rot. It's one of those ones that have been carved around the power lines. We consulted with Bob McGee, and he agreed that it should come down. And the neat thing about it, though, is what will be in our proposal is that the wood from the oak is going to be saved and moved into benches, actually, on the property. So we are going to save that and reuse it. Let's see, some of the other things that have changed since the very first iteration is when we went into this, we had hoped to use the well on the old Gump's house for the irrigation here. That proved to not be viable because it was too close to the new septic system. So we now have a proposal to put a well in on this property for irrigation at the community garden, which actually isn't part of this phase, and also to be used at the kids' place for cleaning and such. We now have a shed located. This is the corner of the abutting property here. So we have a shed located behind the abutting property, which will house the electric, the well equipment, and will be about 10 by 10, so it will not require a building permit. Most of the rest of it is the same. Kids' Place is still where it was proposed. These are grassy areas for children to play in here. There's going to be some grading and making of rolling hills, as Ann calls them, roly-poly hills. We have, back in the parking, we have handicap parking that's going to be paved. The rest is still proposed to be gravelled. And what we've decided to do when we go out to bid on this, and I have to consult my notes to get the correct wording, is because Bob McGee would prefer a paved parking area, but it's been proposed as gravel all along and it's approved that way. What we are doing is when we go out to bid, we're going to put in the gravel as the base bid and add the paving on as what they call an ad alternative. And so when the bids come in, we'll be assessing, the costs and all of that at that time. Throughout this, we've worked with the planning board engineer and also with Bob McGee on all of the drainage, all of the grades. And one other improvement that's going to be coming from this project, there's a catch basin that comes off the property. I can't find it, but it's over here somewhere. And we're going to be installing an oil gas hood on that catch basin on Rockwood Road, which will actually be improving the water quality going into that catch basin. Bob McGee has approved that. Planning board has approved it. Let me see if there was anything else. That's pretty much the changes that have come through. We've got our drawing plans all set with all of the things that you need to go out to bid. One other important thing is that when CPC goes out to bid, all of the grading and everything will be done for Kids' Place as well, but Ann Proto is going to actually bid out the construction of the playground and the surfacing separate. So that'll be her jurisdiction. So I will turn it over to Ann, but I don't know if you have any other questions.
Two questions, Cindy. You're going to bid pretty quick. 30 days?
As soon as we get everything together, yes.
Yeah, but 30 days
Sure.
to get them back in?
Right, because we definitely want to do construction this spring.
Award, okay. And then do you have any estimate of time frame to complete?
I do not. I can
Good answer.
find it out, but nothing else.
I've been asked that, and I'm sure you have too, is, will there be an opportunity to use it at all before the summer's out, or,
I would say yes, because I think once it gets going, it's
pretty quick,
It's
I would
really
think.
grading and revegetating and all that. Ann can answer for the playground, because I don't know what the time frame is on that, but the rest of it should be pretty quick.
Those are future issues.
Yeah, and I will say, I think there's a question that might have just arisen here. On the plan that you have, you can see the community garden that stretches back to the right.
That was my second question.
Right. And then there's a proposed trail system out the back to the vernal pool. When we started this, we decided to break it into two segments. One was to get this parking area in Kids' Place done ASAP, and then to do the community garden and the trails in a separate project. And there were two reasons for that. One was just timing and not biting off more than we wanted to chew. And the second was we did hire our landscape architect for this. And, honestly, if we were not happy, we wanted to have the freedom to choose someone else to do the rest of it if we so desired.
Everybody okay with that? Cindy, you've done a great job. Thank you for.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. It's been fun. I'm really happy.
Yeah,
I'm really excited to what
I'm
will be here next summer.
I'm with you. I think this is going to be a wonderful, wonderful project for the town.
Right.
But this is a win. And Ann is bringing us Norfolk Center.
These are pretty close to the final drawings. There have been a few changes, but I wanted to just pass these around so you get an idea of that's the back and this is the front, so you can see what the range will look like. except the bars are not there. That's like just for a safety railing. It's going to look a little different, but that's what some of the color and,
Yeah, that's right.
and that's what the
Mr.
fire truck's going to
Recreation,
look
I'm
like,
sorry.
and the swings and the sandbox is going to be off the main structure. But we're trying to we actually
Possible you think we can get that on camera?
So we're actually really looking forward to working on the surfacing. There are a couple of new surfacings that are out, and one of them is manufactured by a company in New Jersey, and there are a couple of playgrounds in this state that have it, and one is in Framingham, and if we didn't have a foot of snow, we would have gone to look at it by now. But so next week or so, you have to a little blowtorch and blow it out. So, but the great thing is it's handicapped accessible. It doesn't freeze. It has a better fall height, and it lasts longer. A lot of playgrounds have what they call poured in place, but I'm not an advocate of poured in place. I think it's way too much money, and it was like the second generation of playground surfacing. So I'm very happy that the third generation has come around, and we're going to have an opportunity to take advantage of it and actually save a little money in doing so. Better.
I'm asking you questions I think we know the answers to, but more for folks at home on cable. Can you share with folks what is going to happen, and not in terms of the land, but the use of Old Kids Place and the fact that the equipment really isn't usable or transferable and so on and so
Well,
on?
we've actually been taking the playground equipment out of the original Kids Place for the past 7 or 8 years. It's
falling apart.
It is falling apart, and we've always had the playground inspected, and I'm also an inspector, but we've also had an outside person look at it for many years, and we started taking playground equipment out of there 7 or 8 years ago, and the equipment has just passed its life, and the design is past its life. I mean, a lot of things have changed. A lot of things have changed just very recently with ADA. You know, the guidelines are now laws, and you know, the good thing is that it's accessible for everyone. And this playground is flat and accessible, but it also uses the land really well. I'm actually very excited about having adjacent to the playground, you know, grass area where the kids can play, but we're building in what I call roly-poly hills. So as we all remember, rolling down hills when you're a little kid, you know. So we're going to, you know, take advantage of what's there and really. I think the whole area is going to be beautiful, and Kids Place 2, or whatever it is going to be called, is going to be a part of something that's really wonderful all together.
You've got a nice name for it right there, Gumps Farm Kids Place.
Yeah. So and we've taken everything, you know, everything is based, the design is based on Norfolk. It's designed after a rotary. It's got the fire truck. It's got a Grange facade. It's got the schoolhouse facade. It's got a turtle crossing. We have little turtle pods. It's age appropriate, 2 to 5, and then one piece of equipment is a little bit larger. But it's really for the age that uses Kids Place now. It's not a school playground. It is a tot lot. It's really for the youngest children and their families. And we have, you know, bucket swings, and there's a shade structure in the center, which is a cool topper, and a little car that looks like a tractor. So,
Well, again, you and Cindy have done yeoman's work on this, and it is. I know you're smiling and saying how much fun it is, but you've also put a ton of work into it. And but even that said, it is a great project.
Well, I've enjoyed myself very much. If I leave nothing else to Norfolk, I will have left this, and I feel pretty good about that. But Cindy, I have to say, Cindy's. She's very good as a project leader. Keeps us on track. So thank you, because I'm happy to have someone telling me what to do.
Well, thank you both. Anybody?
Thank you.
Rob?
Any questions?
No, just I think it's stupendous.
Scott's part of the Scott's on the recreation board for those at home, so he's sitting there saying, "Well, I know all this stuff."
Lots of it. To see this get done.
I know.
Yeah.
Can I,
I think it's going to be terrific.
Can I add just one thing I
Sure.
wanted to point out on here and I forgot? One thing I did want to just point out on the plan, we've had a lot of questions about abutters and privacy issues for abutters. And you can see on this plan that we have extensive plantings along both sides of the property that will shield the abutters from, you know, visually playground from the neighbors and neighbors from the playground. So that's been a paramount concern of ours all along, and I did just want to point out that those are there. So, any other questions in the meantime?
Time frame, do you think you're going to start working on the community garden?
I just had a question about that today, and I'm going to have to speak. We haven't even technically we have not hired anyone to actually implement phase 2 of the plan.
So it's not going to be a summer opportunity.
It will not be available this summer.
So that
It should be available the following. I see no reason it can't be available the following summer. Community gardens shouldn't have any.
it's not major work.
No, and there shouldn't be any big, there's no permitting or anything like
Right.
that. The trail system, as it goes back to the vernal pool on, is that Tucker?
Tucker.
Tucker, will involve permitting for the Conservation Commission, and that potentially could take
Yeah.
a bit.
And there are trails through there now anyway.
There are trails through there now. It's just that we had in mind to put in a more formal
Right.
viewing platform over the vernal pool, and we'll have to see how that plays out when we go to Conservation Commission on that. But
And-
yeah, community garden, I don't see any, once we get somebody in place to do it,
Yep.
I don't really see any
The
issues.
and I know I've shared this with you, but the Lions have volunteered to do any community work to help in the project. One thing that was mentioned to me specifically was taking down all the old fencing that's there. I don't know. I didn't see that in.
We have it, it's in the
Did I
cost
see the fencing piece?
estimates.
Okay.
Because what we've done is put everything into the cost estimates, not really assuming any volunteer efforts, because it wasn't something that we could rely on as we went into the project, but we are welcoming any and all volunteer efforts on this. There is a lot of debris on this
Right,
property
there
which
is.
will need to be removed. And we do have potentially an Eagle Scout project to put some picnic tables in behind the kids' place. And as we go into the trail system, I think there will certainly be volunteer opportunities there to help implement the trails. And initially, also the first set of trails going out to the pond on Tucker will be handicap accessible.
Great. Anybody?
Good?
Rob?
Thanks.
Well, good.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in on such short notice. Mr. Hathaway. Whoops.
Twice. Nice, yeah.
That's part of the recreational process, right?
If we skip back to the 7:15 agenda item. Two policies to consider that Mr. Bragdon put together, I think with some input from at least one select member. But a liquor license refund policy. And it very simply states, if a liquor license is surrendered, revoked due to sale or closing of the business or other applicable reason, no refund will be given except in hardship situations. The Board of Selectmen must vote to approve any hardship refund. Period.
Do you both know what prompted this?
Yes.
Okay.
Sounds good. No, it makes sense to have it a policy.
Well, what other communities do? Does anyone give a pro rata back?
Not that I'm aware of on a standard basis. They may have hardship cases, but they don't. If there's a transfer in the mid-year, they end up getting
Right.
2 permits.
Scott did some research on that, and exactly as Jack said, he said that he couldn't find anything that said there was a pro rata. I don't think he found anybody. Now, he didn't scour 347 communities or whatever, but none of the local communities have a pro rata component, but most of them had a hardship component.
It's yeah. So I don't know if you want me to go to the next one, or you want to debate that one, tweak it, approve it.
I have no objection.
Do I have a motion?
I move that we.
You got beat.
Sorry, Rob.
Go
I
for
know
it.
because you asked that we approve the liquor license refund policy as written.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then the second policy is the purchase or consumption of alcohol by minors. This is related to Well, I'll just read the policy. The Norfolk Board of Selectmen has adopted a zero-tolerance policy toward the purchase and/or consumption of alcoholic beverages by persons under age 21. The sale of alcoholic beverages in the town of Norfolk to any person under age 21 will be reported to the town or Norfolk Licensing Authority by the Norfolk Police Department. All reported violations will result in a hearing with the Board of Selectmen. The penalties will be as follows. First offense, $1,000 fine to be paid to a charity of the Board of Selectmen's choice, with preference given to Norfolk Dare. Second offense, $2,000 fine to be paid to a charity of the Board of Selectmen's choice, with preference to the Norfolk Dare. And third offense, $4,000 fine to be paid to a charity of the Board of Selectmen's choice, with preference given to Norfolk Dare, plus a 1-week suspension of the license. Norfolk Police Department has adopted a zero-tolerance policy and will adhere to the above policy adopted by the Board of Selectmen when conducting their alcoholic beverage compliance checks within the town of Norfolk.
Scott, you weren't on the board, but just a little history on this. The original policy that we had, we don't have a lot of these, that's the good news, but we did have one 3 years ago. You were on the board then, I think, yeah, 4 years ago. And the policy was tied to revenues associated with weekends. Well, that's a crapshoot in its best day. And it also allowed the individual to give the money to any charity they wanted. And so we've been tweaking this to give us more control and to put more of a definitive number to it. And so this is, I guess, really the third revision, I think, of the policy.
Yeah, I had one suggestion I wanted to make to
Sure.
that. I went over this with Scott and actually kind of thought about this tonight. Just on the third offense, just instead of saying third offense, say additional offenses.
Third and subsequent.
A third and subsequent would be great. I'll take that as a friendly amendment to my amendment. And then you might want to say plus a minimum of 1 week suspension. So if you're on the fourth, fifth, or sixth suspension, you might want to go.
I would agree with that. That okay with you, Rob?
Yes, yes.
Can I ask a
Scott?
question? Yeah,
Sure.
it's okay with me. The only thing, this is our policy. I mean, I assume ABC is different because to me it seems like if you violate it 3 times, we still even allow you to even have a liquor license period. I mean, do we have the chance to revoke? I mean, this is a
You can revoke the
3-strike.
license. We have full
But
authority.
you know what I mean? They've broken the law 3 times now, and I mean, is it?
Well, this doesn't say within a year. I mean,
Okay.
we've looked at some offenses where there's been a multi-year gap between offenses. So
It could have different ownership too. It could be a lot of different things. But I was just thinking,
Correct.
like, if one place like Waxy's, it's always getting in trouble in Foxborough. They have like 3 offenses in
Well,
the
there
same
was
year.
there was a pattern,
Yeah.
and we did have a second offense on,
Yeah.
on one establishment.
you know, I asked Scott. You just brought up a point that I talked about with Scott Bragdon. Was if it's a different owner, I'm assuming that we go back to it's a first offense. I mean, unless there's some other. I mean, unless they literally keep the entire staff on and manager.
Well, I think it would have to, because it would relate to the owner, the holder
Yeah.
of the license. So I would think it would have to. You don't agree?
I'm just thinking, that's my pen. I was wondering where my pen went.
That's really important.
Jeez. Here, let me. I'll give you mine too if you want.
Scott, I got your notes back from Jim that he took.
I got another one right here, so I'm good.
I try to keep a good eye on it, but
I'm getting queasy about the whole Norfolk charity thing.
You mean the DARE program?
I mean, anybody that's going to give them a tax deduction, because the feds don't know it was a fine.
Well, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
No, I know we've talked about this.
Well, I actually talked about it with Scott today, who talked to an accountant about that, because that question's come up before about it being a tax deduction, and the feedback that he got, and it seemed to make sense to me, was that it's a corporation, so whether or not they're paying $1,000
Worth of a
as
fine,
a fine or
that's
$1,000
deductible
charity,
as well.
it's
Is that a business
still
expense?
right. It still affects their bottom line the same way.
But they might not every liquor store is incorporated as a corporation either. They could be an LLC, they could be a partnership, they could be a sole proprietor.
No, but the impact would be the same. I mean,
Right.
it's a pass through, but it would still be the same.
Yeah.
I don't mind they write it off because it still goes to DARE, it still goes to good cause. It still hits them in the pocketbook, and a charity still gets the money. And they take it,
So make it go to DARE.
Well, that was. I'll be honest with you. That was my bias.
I mean, preference. Whose preference is that?
It's the Board of Selectmen's, but what better program can we think of than a program that has been well received, and I mean, Steve Plimpton is an icon. My kids remember him. It's a great program, and I just think it's a great way for the money to. I mean, it's a program that needs help. I mean, we're constantly having to raise money to support that program. So, not that we're encouraging people to violate the liquor policy, but to serve minors. That's not my point. But should it occur, to me, it's the right place for the money to go. But that's just my opinion.
I don't have any problem with going there.
What do you think? I mean, future boards always have a right to revise a policy.
Yeah, this is just a policy.
Yeah, it's just a policy.
That's fine.
We revise somebody else's, so that's their privilege.
We paid to Norfolk Dare.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
drop it
just-
in Norfolk there.
Yeah.
I moved to amend everything in between paid to and Norfolk Dare.
Paid to Norfolk Dare.
Right.
I mean, I have utmost respect for all the charities operating in town.
But this is
But that's another thing. Are we going to check if they're actually, are they a C3? Are they registered in Norfolk? Let's just make it simple.
Well, I don't view this as picking out one charity versus another. I mean, this is, DARE is an organization dealing specifically with the issue of underage drinking. So,
Apparently Dare didn't sink in enough, so we got to give them more money because there's minors out there.
But you're right, Jim. Steve has been around for a really long time. It's nice of you to point that out.
all right, so we're changing this to reflect that the fine will be strictly to Norfolk Dare. We've said, and subsequent offenses, and a minimum of 1 week.
What is our discretion on revocation? Do we need to put that in there? If we get we're at our wits' end with an entity.
I don't think so. I think general law gives you authority to revoke a license if necessary.
Okay, they're not going to say to us, "Well, your own policy says, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th time you can charge me $4,000, but I'm still in business."
But the policy doesn't say we can't revoke the license at any one of these offenses.
Yeah, I would assume it.
We can't, so I think we're good.
I would assume at the annual renewal process, if they've had a third offense, you're probably going to have a very serious conversation about whether they're not going to renew the license or not.
I would agree.
Okay.
But we still have authority, probably to even in midstream, even mid-renewal period, right? We're
We
not
do. It's got to be
For cause, though.
Yeah.
with good cause.
Yeah. We have a motion as amended. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that takes care of 7:15.
Catching up.
Okay. I'm on a tight time schedule, I got to tell you. My daughter got her braces off today, so I haven't seen her for
But we're not going to deal with 8:15.
5 years without braces.
We're not going to deal with 8:15, so we're good.
One beach.
One for each, and one for you. Oh, and you have the.
Those
so-
are the distance, will you please?
The temptation's much too great.
It's hard for me to, what can I say?
So this is a supplement to the warrant that was provided to you, right? You guys have the warrant?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, if we had internet connection, we'd have the warrant.
Well, there's more copies if anybody wants it.
Yeah, can I have a paper copy, please?
I had interconnection. You didn't have it?
I have internet connection. You sure you
I
have
apologize. I
I had it
put
when
a very.
I came in.
This is definitely a performance issue.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Money.
I have to check my goals to see if that was on there.
Keep Selectmen happy should kind of be a generic goal.
You got one more, or did you pass them?
I thought you had internet connection.
There you go. I do. I can print one for work. I can print one for work. No, sorry.
It's an interesting board. I take pens, you take articles.
I thought you had it. I can just get a copy.
Jack goes home with the coffee cups.
Yeah, I'll sit next to you.
That's all right. What are we looking at? All of them?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at this online today. I mean, we don't have a lot.
We don't. We had we had about 8 before the ones that I added on to the bottom of the pile there. So, do you want to talk through the ones that are in the large handout that Marion provided? There's some CPC articles.
Page 5 starts the new one.
You're recommending a 1.5% on step.
I am, although the budget is still being developed, so I reserve my right to.
That was a generic I just put in from last year. You can,
Okay.
subject to
So that 1.5's not chiseled in stone here.
Correct.
any of those generic I just took from the last one.
Okay.
So they may have changes in.
I was gonna say, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. There is a capital we've got to talk about at some point, I think, after we get a little further down the budget road. I know we had hopes of trying to resurrect some of the items that were cut when the prison mitigation money was,
Did that ever get resolved?
yes.
Okay.
But the items that were cut with the prison mitigation, I think we had some conversations about trying to fund that in the spring. I'm not sure that's going to be possible unless prison mitigation is restored, but we'll see.
And we're gonna put you ready for this, Marion? A generic article associated with town meeting governance?
No, I already got that on the bottom of the other one. On the last handout that I did, town meeting procedure.
Oh, your handwriting. Ah,
I gotta get it in before
Before you close the warrant.
Got
I
it.
close the article, before I close the warrant. So back to page 5, I guess. Town clerk would like to set up a revolving fund. Town clerk's record preservation fund. So people ask for a copy of a item that would help fund the new system he has.
Well, is this an additional $5 fee per vital record?
No, I don't think so. I think he's already charging a fee.
which goes to the general fund.
Right.
Is he submitting savings to the tune of $5,000 to account for this lost revenue?
Well, his budget, I guess, yeah, you're right. His budget would have to be,
Yeah, if he's directing it to a revolving fund, it doesn't go to the general fund, it's lost revenue.
In these times of austerity, we have to be very careful.
I think he would probably argue that there hasn't been a budget for the preservation, restoration, and documentation of records of the town of Norfolk.
So how is this different from the $40,000 I believe we voted at town meeting? Was it 40 or 35?
It's a one-time.
That was a one-time paying for the.
Copy and stuff.
We weren't told that there would be additional.
Oh, yeah, he went over that. There was questions at town meeting about that.
Was there?
Yeah, he did.
He's hoping to maintain it this way and get it that way, you
We
know.
outvoted 2-1. Damn.
Shouldn't have gotten a coffee at that point, I guess.
Then there are a number of zoning articles by the Zoning Bylaw Study Committee.
Very concerned with frontage roads, I see.
Very concerned with frontage roads. Trying to eliminate the need for frontage roads in the 115 area.
Yeah, ours coming off these bumps.
R will come off because that's a repeat of some of the other ones. R is a big one, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
That's coming off, and the one by zoning bylaws staying in.
Right.
Or is it on the
Oh, no, I'll put that in, but it was written twice by two different people, same article.
Yeah, the one S was written by Gino.
Well, it's a better chance to get approved by putting that twice.
Yeah.
You never know. All right, try it. If all else fails.
I would note that this removes, well, the building height removes more authority from the, I'm sorry, F7E. The change in,
40 to 45 feet?
well, no, this is the
Which one?
front rear yard, front yard.
Which one? What number?
Well, it's
7F, F7E?
F7E, yeah. So we're
Pages
taking
are
away
numbered.
more things out of the zoning board of appeals and putting them in the planning board, which essentially means it'll happen all the time. B1 commercial. So this is downtown. Downtown's B1, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
So this is downtown plus, 115, 1A. So we could see more front yard parking in the B1.
I looked at this one a little bit, and I'm confused as to why, 40 feet is by right, and then 46 feet is by special permit. What's
Oh, no,
that?
go below that to F7E. Yeah, there's building, blah, 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 40 to 46. And then F7E
Yep.
controls front yard parking, rear yard parking. And we made a concerted effort to make sure that there was only rear yard parking in the B1 at least, and down in the other districts. We want parking, we want frontage, we want people on the streets. We don't want parking lots on the streets.
Yep.
So this takes away the special permit. You had to go to the ZBA to get a special permit to do this instead of the planning board. So what will happen now? What happened before is if somebody wanted front yard parking, the planning board would say, "I'm sorry, you got to go talk to the ZBA." So they'd go and talk to the ZBA, and the ZBA order would not allow it. But now it's going to be rolled into one big application with the planning board. So I guess my only complaint is it sort of makes it easier to do it. And what's the real beef here?
I don't know the logic behind that one, although I mean, there's,
Well,
over the last few years, there's been an effort to,
You say to make it easier.
Yeah.
I think it makes it more logical, because the zoning board, you're dealing with a component of a larger issue. You can only rule on that component.
Right.
You don't have any input to any of the other considerations associated with that plan. The planning board's practice and responsibility is to look at the project at large and how it relates to the community and how they think it best fits within the community, of which parking is a significant component. And so, I guess to me, and I'm assuming everybody, it goes the way it should, which is always a debate. When you pull a component of that out and take it to a separate board that's almost judicial in nature,
Right.
that's, you can only do a yes or no.
Yeah. Well, not
You
exactly,
can't really, you can sort of theoretically and emotionally consider the project at large, but you can't weigh on the project at large. Whereas the planning board can. If they're making if there's a logic for having parking in front, or whatever, wherever they want to put it, they're looking at it in terms of the scope of the entire project.
Except this is such a, the location of the parking was so instrumental in developing the downtown, walkable downtown feel, which is why the zoning board is for things where you are deviating greatly from the norm. When it's very different from what we expect, generally you're in front of the zoning board. The planning board is, pink shutters, yellow shutters, 4 feet, 6 foot walls,
Right, but how does that change in this consideration?
Well, you're going from the zoning board, which is where we're going to make a big deviation from what the town expects.
And do you view this as a big deviation?
I do, yeah. Front yard versus rear yard is that's a big thing when you talk about the downtown particularly. I mean, going back to Dan Winslow, when he was on the planning board, it was a big effort we're going to make sure that the fronts of the buildings are between 8 and 11 or whatever it is feet from the street, because we want a walkable downtown. We want picture windows in the downtown. We don't want to wall it off and make it cave-like. That was a concerted effort. And this now we're kind of, to me, it just sounds like you're turning this into the kind of question of, is the Bullard going here or here, or whatever, those balustrade, those.
But see, I guess I have more faith on the boards. It's still a judgment call. It's not a right, it's a judgment call. And so, I find it a little, you've got volunteers on both boards. I don't view one group any more prepared to make that decision than the other group being prepared to make that decision. I view them equally in terms of their support of what they want to see in the community. And I think having a larger view of the entire project and having input to that entire project brings more judgment to that decision than having them segmented to two entirely different boards with two entirely different views.
Okay, we'll have to agree to disagree. We're not voting up or down
No,
on
we're
this
not.
stuff.
No, it'd be a good debate.
Article U. Really? Article U is the rezoning of a certain property.
Page.
Page 10.
Okay.
Right.
Is that up for debate again?
It is.
Yeah, you weren't here that week, right? You missed the meeting because Bob Nicodemus told us about that. Jim and I. He's been that, and
They want to bring that back.
We're going to try that again. Interesting.
That one and the number of dwellings, the 32, I think, versus, yeah, the one right
Yeah.
below that.
Yeah, it's U and V are
Bad, I can't
Repeats,
think of one. I thought about
repeats.
that today.
and at some point, gentlemen, we have to talk about Article Z.
No W? You want to talk about W?
Oh,
Oh, Bob must have
yeah, I do want to talk about W.
Yeah, I would be interested in pulling the town vote on that, because it was a, it was a state it was a referendum.
I think it was like 60-44, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that, Rob. So it was a
I think
big
the sense of the town is to
exactly.
allow medical
Yeah.
marijuana.
I think, yeah. So
Who came up with this? Zoning bylaw study committee?
yeah, Bob said he was going to do that too. I think.
Why? How?
Well, I think until the state rules are all completely defined, they're looking for a moratorium, which they've worked with town council on this.
See if town will vote to place a moratorium.
I would like to hear the logic. I mean, indifferent of my vote
Yeah.
on that particular item. Town council has said, I mean, this,
Well, I think, this is somewhat of a temporary bylaw. My understanding is this is a temporary bylaw saying we're gonna have a moratorium until the rules
gets ironed out.
are promulgated or,
but,
put in place.
but our vote is contingent on what the state allows.
Right, but there's
So
some,
isn't it implied that we can't do anything until the state,
There are no regs, so we couldn't.
we can't do anything anyway?
right, but I think the question is, and there's a whole lot of debate with lawyers on this side and lawyers on this side, is there, there's some debate about whether or not somebody can put an application in now before the law, before all the rules
To
are
become a
in place.
dispensary.
There is no application process. I mean, I'm puzzled as to how,
Well,
if the state hasn't allowed or hasn't worked out how to apply for a liquor license, good luck in applying for a liquor license. I mean,
I see this as really symbolic, and the town voted the other way. I mean, the people spoke.
I'm just trying to figure out why it's necessary.
Yeah,
I just don't understand why it's necessary, which I guess is another way of saying it's symbolic.
Well, this isn't this isn't the marijuana bylaw that we did several years ago.
No, I know.
No, it's the one we, yeah. it's the
This
one we
was
just voted on.
medical
Yeah.
marijuana.
Yeah.
That's my,
You know,
I'm
town
not
meeting
zoned
time
out,
is
but-
precious, Jack.
What's that? Yeah.
Town meeting time is precious. I don't want to waste it on, superfluous discussions of philosophical meanderings
This would be a
about the
good
use
one
of
to open
medical
it up to
marijuana.
about 75 questions per person.
Dude, like, what are you talking about?
I just don't understand why it's even there.
Yeah,
Zoning bylaw study committee's meeting tonight. You can-
what's the Board of Health think? I mean, they'll end up being, you would think, they'll end up with some regulatory authority here. I would be much more sympathetic to the Board of Health saying, can you put a moratorium on this than the ZBSC, to be honest.
So are you in favor of somebody putting in a medical dispensary?
I'm in favor of people getting the medicine that their doctor prescribes to them.
Time out.
I guess we were trying to go to the next
We're
level.
going outside the boundaries of the scope of what this is all about. This is an article regarding process, not anything else. All right? And I guess, and I understand what they're saying is that we don't want anything to happen until we know the process.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're saying. And I'm just saying, is that necessary? Because to me, it's illogical. I mean, there is no
Well-
process. There's no application process. There are no guidelines, no rule, and nothing is in place at this point in time.
But my understanding, again, I'm not the attorney involved in this, but my understanding is, so we have town meeting on May 7th or whatever the date is. And
That's a good day.
And we don't approve something like this. On July 1st, the state rules are now completed.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a process for allowing somebody to come and present an application to the town of Norfolk.
But we're not.
We don't have anything to prevent them from doing that, or having any,
Zone place for.
or having a zone that says, you can only do it here. And right now, my understanding is the rules about where or not how big a zone we have to say it is and all that are all
So your
clear.
concern is that we could get caught in the middle between
you-
it being implemented by the state.
Correct.
And us not having an opportunity to take whatever actions are necessary in accordance with those state regulations to prevent this thing from being out of control.
As Mr. Garrity points out, town meeting time is precious, and I'm not sure you want to call a special town meeting just to deal with this on July 15th.
Oh, wait a minute.
Well, it might be one of the high points of the year, you never know.
It could be.
No pun intended.
Oh, that was good. I see what you did there.
Again, I am not arguing for or against the article. I'm just trying to explain it.
That's logical.
Thank you.
Well, we should definitely stuff this one at the end when we do the ordering. So the four of us left can.
That's logical. We could
Thanks,
get we
appreciate
could get
that.
stuck in the middle of that. You're right.
Well, a lot of towns are afraid of that. That's the biggest fear. Again, whether they want it or not, I'm not going to argue that. It's that they don't know and they have no
but
control.
we
and everyone has
could get stuck for a period of time without having any ability to manage it within our community.
But no, actually no, because unless the only thing that we're stuck with is adult entertainment, because that's gone to the Supreme Court and it says you have to pick a place to put adult entertainment, or you're going to put it. They'll put it wherever they want.
Which we have.
We have, right. So there's no Supreme Court case that says you got to have a pot dispensary in your town. When they come into Bob and pull a permit to build a pot dispensary, Bob can say, I don't see anywhere in our bylaws where you're allowed to put a pot dispensary. Go pound sand.
But it's like the solar, though. The solar was the same thing.
No, it's very
Yes.
different.
In some aspects, it's the same, in that unless you had a solar district, an overlay district, that somebody could come in and put a solar field anywhere they wanted. Yes, they could.
No, they can't.
Oh, absolutely. The Holliston versus Bullard Farm case.
And it failed. Is there a solar field on that place in Holliston? No, there's not. Because
No, but we didn't.
Nobody
We
allowed
did
it.
not appeal it to the court. No.
But there's no provision for that, and that's an energy facility, which is under a different portion of the law. And there is a specific
Portion of the
solar
law,
language in the zoning in the 40A.
What did town council say about that?
The zoning bylaw study
We have
committee.
no lawyers sitting at this table. What did-
Zoning bylaw study committee consulted with them. I did not. So
Okay. I would be curious what they say. I mean, if this is in fact for show.
well, this is obviously for show because it just says to place a moratorium bylaw. I mean, the bylaw's not here. I mean,
Right.
Yeah, what's
is-
the point of it? We're wasting precious town meeting
we're
time.
missing precious jack
I bet you
time
the
right now.
Yeah, because you want to see his daughter. Let's move on. We're not taking it off anyway.
She's already in bed, Jack.
I know. She's
teenager.
12. She's not in bed yet. She's probably watching right now. You probably just offended her.
Well, there's probably several people that are going to apply for the open space next door starting July 1st.
Yeah, Old Town Hall. Can I talk to that for a second?
Yeah, I would like to
So
talk
we
about
put out notices. We put them. I believe there was on Norfolk Net. We talked about it constantly. We were looking for people who are interested in talking about the future of Old Town Hall. And God, the silence was deafening.
Yeah.
So I'm about ready to just throw up my hands and not be a pain on this anymore. When people with plans come forward.
Well, I think we have options. And there's a good time as any to talk about them. We got to do something. We got to get rid of this,
Yep.
one way or the other. We know some things we do
We
know.
have to fix this.
There's some things we do know that we know of no immediate value of the building to the town, even if we repaired it.
It's not usable. In its
Right. It
current
is not usable, and it's not financially
long time.
feasible to repair it. So it's not usable. So it's got to come down, one way or the other. It's got to come down. Either we take it down, or somebody else takes it down.
Oh, no, it's right there.
We own the lot next to Old Town Hall.
Okay, Jim.
So you have options here. You could look at the entire piece of property, recognizing we have Town Pond, which we have to get to. Pardon me, Scott.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
keep doing that, and I apologize. We have the garage, which we currently use. And what few people, and you're right, the deafening has been overwhelming. The silence has been overwhelming on this. But there are folks that think that there's a lot of feedback on the advantages of the parking that is there.
Mm-hmm.
So you could look at it, you could look at the whole parcel with the appropriate easements to Town Pond and all that kind of thing, or you could look at it as parcels. And say, there's a lot that has frontage with the piece of property to the right of Town Hall, including Town Hall, that is a very viable building lot. and it's in the commercial district, so it could be used as residential, or it could be used as mixed use, or whatever. And retain the parking lot and the
was that
garage.
lot to the right of Town Hall, is that zoned commercial as well? Or does it stop, I thought it stopped
I
at
think
Town
it's,
Hall property.
I think it stops at Town Hall.
So we might want to consider a Article
Then we
AA
could add that into the B1
to
district.
rezone that
Right.
into B1,
Yeah, good point.
if that's not a park.
But I'm just saying, it's not a park. But that's another option. Now, I'm not expressing a bias one way or the other, but I mean, we have to come to town meeting with a recommendation.
And I think we want to, my initial thought, and I can be talked out of this, is it would be better to have a specific, very specific recommendation. And in the past, we've,
That's what I'm saying.
yeah.
That's what
Buy,
I'm
sell,
saying.
repair, that
This
doesn't
is
go
what-
anywhere.
This is what we want to do.
Just, this is what we're going to do, and let people
Right.
fight it, you know,
Yeah.
that's the
They
straw
can agree
man.
or disagree.
Then they'll get energized about it.
They might, yeah.
And we can, at town meeting, figure out what, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think the debate is all or none. I
And I
mean,
think-
all or some.
We'd put this on early, too,
Oh,
while
absolutely.
we still have people there.
Yeah, yeah, I wouldn't disagree.
Before we start
But
arguing about pot dispensaries.
the time's overdue. This is overdue. You concede?
Yes. I concede.
Okay.
But does it mean we have to write something what we want to do for that?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
between now and
Yeah, but between now and when this goes to before the advisory board, we need to make a decision, because it's ours to decide, better or worse, and there will be disagreements no matter what decision we make. What is in the best interest of the town? And I mean, that's the driver of the decision. What is the best interest of the town?
You know, and there's one hand-drawn plan that carves out the building and some of the land to the right.
I have an interest in keeping the parking lot, keeping the garage, and keeping town pond.
Yeah,
I think-
and that, this plan would meet that, would do that.
Although, you know, I didn't grow up here, so I didn't have my swimming lessons in town pond. I'm
people
wondering
did.
what the utility of the thing is.
Well,
at this
bottom line
point.
is we got it, one way or the other.
Yeah, I know. Did you like it, Mary?
I loved it.
Did you really?
My wife got her swimming lessons, so it's
Yeah,
been
we're gonna put
somewhat recent.
Rex putting docks back out there.
Really?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Is it big enough to hold a boat?
Not that kind of boat. So like pier, like to walk on just fishing.
Nothing over 28 feet.
Like the two guys in Jaws when they were,
Yeah, yeah, fishing.
gonna
No,
need a bigger
just
boat.
like fishing piers and stuff like that. So that's supposed to all be done.
Fishing
pretty soon.
piers? How deep is this thing?
I've never been out there.
well, it does get deep in the middle. The part that I've kind of walked is not deep.
We're not going to that one. The day you and I were out there, we're not going back there. Don't you remember that? When the guy came from the state?
Oh, yeah, he was helpful.
Anyway,
State.
okay. All right, so we need to
Yep.
all put our minds to this and see if we can well, we do have to come up with a decision, and I agree, a very specific recommendation, and let folks
Let
do.
it-
Because if we don't start with a straw man, we'll never get this done.
Right.
But it has to be a straw man we support.
Yeah.
and would go forward with if approved.
Yeah, I was gonna say
would
we can
be
start
the
and they approve. Now we're like,
preferable
okay, now we have to
decision.
do this. We have to either tear it down.
Yeah.
So now the interesting ones are on the other page I handed out. These were some that were given to me from department heads. First one being the town clerk. And not final language here, but what he's trying to, the problem he has is somebody does not get a dog license this year. They, by bylaw, are hit with a fine. They don't pay it, they just ignore us. They come back next year, they can get a dog license without paying the old fine. So he's trying to put in some.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah,
He's trying to put in some language that allows them to prevent the person, and this is where there'd probably be some differing ideas, but prevent the person from getting another dog license, whether it's the same dog or a different dog.
Yeah, different dog.
Well,
So Lassie dies, and you go in to register Benji, and you get hit with a $150 fine.
and that's, I mean, that's, I guess that's a debate.
Well, is it max 50, or is if you don't register that? How does he know you had Benji for 3 years without registering it? You know?
It depends if you registered it once. That's how you get caught. I
Well,
think. I think it
some-
records from like Acorn because we had that. You know, we had
sometimes we
dogs.
get lists from the rabies vaccinations come in, so we know your dog got a rabies vaccination, but why haven't you gotten it licensed?
Wouldn't this encourage people to try and hide their dogs more, not go in if they're going to get
We should
whacked?
just
with
not license people?
No, but but we're hitting the people who are doing the right thing. They're coming in to license their dog in the future. Okay, I screwed up. I
Do
didn't.
fines become liens?
Oh God.
They do not, in this case.
Some do, though.
Late water bills
Become liens.
get liened.
Right. This does not.
No, but I think there's an expense to us going through the leaning process too, and
I'm sure there is.
It's not worth it. If it's $50, we'll lose money.
But to Rob's point, I guess it's theoretically possible that somebody could ignore this for the 11-year or 12-year life of the dog.
oh yeah, I mean and I'm sure that happens. I mean that's
The amount of money you get out of this, what are we talking? Come on, under $1,000, right? There can't be that many late. Why?
no, it's more of a principle thing. Well,
He needs just something so he can force it to come back.
If you have a rule, there has to be some penalty for not following the rule.
Right.
But these people are coming in and doing the right thing.
No, but they were.
no, but they didn't license their dog last year.
Oh, they made a mistake.
No, it wouldn't be a mistake. How do you know? You have a dog. Well, I've had 3 dogs, so I know. It's either I'm lazy, I didn't get down there. You can do it all online. There's no really excuse not to do it.
I'm a libertarian. I have a cat.
The notice for dog licensing comes with your census form.
Can't wait to read the patch this week.
I was wondering who the new guy was. Hello, Patch.
And I think Hillary was writing all over Facebook. She sends out citations for late fees, doesn't she? Or she knows, like,
It's on Norfolk Net. It's everywhere. Yeah.
she was doing something.
People know they have to have a dog.
No,
license.
and she sends out. She's been doing citations, is it, or something for issuing for late fees? I'm not she needs it so she can track for safety, make sure you've been vaccinated. The dog's been vaccinated, and when they get rabies, they get a call.
All right, let's. This is his article. It's not.
Not for us. Yeah.
Then the next
Let's talk about this next one.
4, just again, and Bob's done this before, and not we haven't gotten this far, but so we have some articles, and I'm just going to call them appropriation articles for lack of a better word. One thing that he came to me and said we have some big projects for roads, if one example, and if we do these, it's going to eat up all the Chapter 90 money, and then we won't have we won't have money for other projects around town. So the thought process is, either combining this with Chapter 90 or just asking for an article. In this example, repair Seekonk and Main Street. And he's got a budget of $300,000, so that we would have a separate article to probably borrow the money, unless we want to come up with a source of funds from someplace. But a special article. These are obviously main streets in town.
But I thought Seekonk and Maine was going to be done under Chapter 90.
Well, again, he's just, he's put his budget together, and they could be, but it's going to eat up this whole year's allotment of Chapter 90 money. I mean, we get $360,000. So.
And you got about 130 left.
From last year.
Bottom line is you don't have enough anyway, one way or the other. Yeah, you got money left from last year. But so he's suggesting to take out the big items.
Yeah, and these are so 4 projects that in a perfect world he'd get funding for all of them, and he'd take them on. The second one is really I combined 4 on them because I didn't want to have a list of too many, but the whole kind of intersection of Medway Branch, Barnstable Road, the DPW, including the DPW parking lot, and the transfer station parking lot, needs some serious attention. And he's put together, it's actually 3 different $65,000 projects that, and I combined them for $195,000. That would be another one that we could think about. Third one being the Lawrence Street Bridge. It's I think he said 100-and-something-year-old bridge. It's in serious need of replacement. And it's likely in the $750,000 to $1 million range. Now we're going to look at, is there a TIP project that we can put that under the TIP program? And obviously the state's always talking about repairing bridges, and but we'd try and look at that outside of the Chapter 90 again, because that would eat up 2 to 3 years of Chapter 90 funds.
How did we fund the one over the Charles?
Miller Street
Bridge
that was
a
done
state
by
project.
state project.
That was a TIP.
Actually, it was done by the Army Corps of Engineers, if I remember.
It's not crazy to think that Lawrence Street could get federal or
Yeah.
state funding.
Yep. Well, unless all the funds in the
The only problem
federal
with Miller
government are
Street Bridge is
sequestered.
it took them 2 years to do it,
Yeah.
Yeah, that was,
compared to what, 6 months on 115 and Millis? They did a great job on
Oh,
that.
that one.
that
They did
wasn't,
That took a while.
Well,
a while.
but for a bridge that heavily traveled,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, I mean, that,
Yeah.
you know, 20 times the amount of traffic. I mean, I thought they did a pretty good job.
The
and
water wasn't as
done
close
timely.
to the one on Rockwood. 115.
Number 4 is the one that I'm a little puzzled by. I thought we
Yeah.
had sufficient funding to do that.
I don't think so.
He's not talking about using water department money, he's talking about,
No, he's talking about using water.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Um,
But not raising new revenue.
I mean, we do have, you know, like $75,000, is it 50 or something? I think it's 75, but it could be $50,000 in the emergency
75.
line item.
Yep.
So there's, you know, we could, I said, well, the one alternative to doing this is to wait till the end of the year. If there's no emergencies, then we come to the
Yeah,
selectmen
but
and say.
he's also got some substantial revenues coming in off of the new hookups on the new developments, too.
And he didn't
Yep.
drop his rates. and
Right.
his,
Nor did he
costs
raise them.
Probably
Yep.
went down.
So,
Yeah, it just, the drop in the volume of
Scott,
water
we'll
that we
just sit back
draw,
and enjoy this one.
you know, the amount of savings in electricity is insignificant compared to the, you know, the amount of, the budget for the,
I want
All
you
the
to
wear
know,
and tear
I
on
want
the-
you to know I asked that
Oh, yeah, I was
question
gonna
on
say,
your
that's
behalf.
Jim's question. That wasn't Rob, remember that?
And after I was
Jim-
ridiculed for 20
That was on
minutes.
the credits.
See, they're
Nobody.
dancing on you, man. You know, a fixed cost can't be 95% of his budget. That's hooey.
He's got revenue coming in to cover that one, I would think.
Now, do we have under the levy limit the ability to fund the borrowing of this? Because if the answer is no,
number 4?
Or any of it.
no, any of these things. Because if the answer is no, and because we're borrowing money for cars, we're going to borrow money
Remember
for
how we
this,
kept,
borrow
I
money-
mean, that's to what was coming up.
This is a 2.5 override if you can't fit it under your levy limit. Are you talking about
Essentially.
2.5 override?
No, I'm not automatically. I mean, a $300,000 borrowing that we pay back over 10 years could be done under the levy limit.
It's like 45 grand or something
Yeah.
like that. But, you know, then you add the 195 and
The only, before we did anything to the, I agree with you that there's a need for the parking lot, especially at the DPW, but we have other issues to deal with eventually at some point with DPW facility.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
Yeah, we look back at last year's budget, we'll see all those items.
right, so, I mean, let's not piecemeal this. You know, if we start attacking some of those other issues, we're wasting our money fixing that parking lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, that's like paving the road and then deciding we're going to put in a water main.
Yeah, and to be fair, we should probably have Bob here for this
Not that we've ever done
conversation,
that.
but, you know,
Twice.
I mean, obviously, you're talking about the expansion of the back
Correct.
garage.
Right.
You know, I don't want to put words in Bob's mouth, but I think he's more talking about the two sides of the building where, you know, the
But
employees are coming
any
in and out.
major construction
Yeah,
on that facility is going to impact that parking lot.
yeah.
So, you know,
I
I
do it
mean,
twice.
I know it's not in great shape, but, you know, the car, Volkswagen's not disappearing.
And
So-
it's not, the general public isn't.
Right,
seriously-
it doesn't
like
impact
Fruit
the general
Street
public. I
impacts the
just
general public.
wouldn't touch that until we know exactly what we're going to do.
It would be a hard sell at town meeting is what I think.
Well, I think
the
it's,
chairman's
That's fine. I'm
suggesting.
just,
I
you
think
know,
it's an illogical sell. I mean, I wouldn't support it. Not until we know what we're going to do with the building, because you're going to impact that parking lot.
well,
Not that, I
brought
agree.
together, I can bring those back again, the improvements to the building,
Yeah.
if that's what you're suggesting. I'd be more than happy to do that. Those weren't met with a lot of enthusiasm.
At some point, I know, tell me about it, but at some point, we have to address those issues.
Yeah.
We could do a fire station while we're at it.
Yeah, we need that too. Somebody needs to win the lottery.
I mean, these really can all fit under, you know, we'll have sub-articles, but we could put those under, one theory is we could put them all under the capital article. I mean, so, you know, Bob and I can work on these, or we can have separate articles if you want to have outside of the capital article.
Do we need an article for number 3? Why would we need an article to apply for grants?
We have it already. It's one of the first 5 or 6 or 7 we do.
Well, we don't. I mean, he brought, I added the seeking grants. I mean, that came up in our
He would like
discussion.
some money.
Well, he's raising the issue that it's quickly becoming a problem. I mean, I think there's some.
And I understand.
Issues there.
But there's no way in the world we can fund that without help.
We can just close the bridge.
No, wait a minute. Don't do that. Because that shows up in the media. This is the first anyone's talked about Lawrence Street Bridge. You can't go from, if you don't give me $1 million bucks.
Calm down. I worry about your blood pressure. Calm down.
I know a certain person with the initials of whatever they are, MBG or ABG, is going to go nuts about that.
I'm all for seeking a
I
grant.
haven't looked at the bridge, but I trust Bob's
apologize for
judgment.
my-
I'm sure there's a need. But this is not an article I would put on the town warrant. I mean,
Good thing the patch left.
there are a lot of infrastructure grants out there. I mean, there's a lot of money for infrastructure right now, especially bridges.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, that's what the...
And I'm talking about repairing,
That's
not
what
building
the
new
sales
ones.
tax is going to go to when
Yeah.
he raises the income tax. Sales tax will go to
When
infrastructure.
and if. And I think the well is something we should just deal with within the operating budget of the.
Somebody, just as a slight aside, I forget who it was, the MMA or somebody put together a chart of the governor's proposal, talked about all the other smaller pieces to that, and there were some very significant smaller pieces to that proposal.
Some very expensive, smaller pieces to that. I saw that.
So, I encourage people to,
It's an ask from May, settle for June kind of situation.
yeah.
You know, speaking of raising taxes, though, I mean, this
Were we
is-
speaking of raising taxes?
we were, if we're talking about spending this kind of money. We have some pretty significant structural problems coming up with this budget, though, already, without adding in, $1 million a new. You were going to talk about that tonight, right?
It was.
All right.
Oh, sorry. Gave you one too many.
We have significant issues with every budget.
Every budget, exactly.
This is very, very preliminary, but this is a update from what I've given you before, talking about, the top part, talking about new revenue. And if we add our 2.5% growth, which is really a fixed number at this point, $561,000 of new tax revenue, assuming we tax to the levy limit. $400,000 of new growth we had, which is not unreasonable. We only had $369,000 this year. So I'm being somewhat optimistic that it will go up a little bit next year. State aid will be somewhere in $0 to $100,000 increase unless the wheels come off the state budget.
That's never happened before.
No. Well, they've cut our general government money so much that.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Nothing. I was just saying that they've cut our state general government aid so much that they can't cut it that much more.
Oh,
And
that sounds like a challenge.
and there's
a will,
no
there's a way, Jack.
political win to them cutting the education aid. So we're really getting the $50 increase per student that they've set as a minimum. So that's where the $50,000 comes from. Additional expenses, and this is where I'm starting to need some guidance, is the King Philip request. The left-hand column, well, I'll start with the right-hand column. Their request, and granted it's what their first straw man is an increase of $1.1 million, 15% increase. That would obviously eat up more than we're just over $1 million of new revenue. Norfolk Public Schools, it's not my understanding, it's not voted by the committee yet, so I don't want to put words in their mouth, so I'm just using last year's increase of about $300,000. Tri-County, that's the number that they've requested, is an $83,000 increase.
Isn't that just dictated by number of students, so there's no, or?
No, well, that's a large component of it. That's generally driving the swings, but it is a budget. They do have a budget behind it. But there are so many towns that are
That's about an 18% increase.
Right, but again, when we go from something like 30 students to 35 students.
Do we know that number?
I
Just
do
out of
not. I've
curiosity?
asked for some, just to give us a budget
'Cause-
book. I don't,
Yeah, that's about 18%.
yeah, it's gone up in $50,000 to $80,000 chunks the last 3 years, so it was $300,000. This is
All
582,000.
right, so they allocate it by the number of students. What I'd like to, what is their base budget from last year? And what is their proposed budget for this year? And what is the difference?
I can get that.
That's the number I want to see. Because I got a funny feeling that number, we're not going to like that number.
I think their budget hearing is always held on the Friday that we go to the MMA conference, so that's why we end up.
Tactfully done.
Well,
Well, we have to say it.
We have one vote.
yeah, we have one out
We have
of
one
like
vote.
17 votes or something.
Oh, whether to approve this or not. I can't believe the other towns would want to be going up by this much either, though.
Well, but
Well,
it's
no,
one of
no,
these.
no, it's the school committee gets the vote, and then we get the bill. We don't get a vote on the bill.
Okay.
And the numbers are low
Right.
enough so that each town is like, well, it's not worth
Well, it used to be that way.
it. Yeah, well, it's
Now
getting
it's,
there.
now it's over $500,000.
580 something and change is our
It's
assessment.
real money.
Yeah. Yeah, it was 130, I think, when I started here.
Budgetary component.
For the record, I think $5,000 is meaningful.
You care about it, yeah, it's hard.
Well, a
Yeah.
house worth of taxes, we
Some of the other big components on the expense side are Norfolk County retirement. That's, again, a fixed number. That is going up $52,000. And then health insurance, if I budget right now, if I'm not adding in any other fluctuations for migration or employee changes, if I just take a strict percentage of what our initial rate increase is, which is about 7.6%, that would be a $126,000 increase to our budget.
What about the contractual raises and the non-contractual raises?
Yeah, that,
Not in here.
not in here.
And how
So,
much is that, you thinking?
Well, it's in the teachers.
Well,
But it is, it's in the
Police
teachers.
and fire will go up.
Right, but it's, yeah, they'll all go up. Four,
I'm thinking half a million.
45.
it'd be about half.
yeah, pretty close.
So we got a $500,000 problem,
Well,
even
look-
with the austerity budget for King Philip.
Right, and so the left-hand column, I plugged in King Philip at the same percentage increase that we awarded, like, for lack of a better word, them last year.
I made a suggestion to Jack today, see if you guys agree. I dread the thought of going through another KP budget hearing like we did last year. I just dread that.
They sent out an email last week, and I think I forwarded it to you, and I apologize if I didn't. They are trying to set up something where they have a joint meeting of all the Board of Selectmen and all the finance committees. I know you were just about to propose something different, but.
Well, you can have different kinds of discussions under different types of circumstances. And what I was suggesting is that, and I said chairs for lack of another thing, but, just a member of each board, town administrator. I wouldn't even bring the finance committees in at that point in time. Sit down with the superintendent and the financial guy and talk about this. And have a very blunt, honest, direct conversation. I understand the process they go through. I know they're in a February deadline by their bylaws, and I understand all that. But I keep reflecting back on your conversation of about 3 or 4 years ago, where you pointed out that they were going to fire 3/4 of their teachers if they didn't get all the money they wanted, which we both, and you know where I'm going with it. Because if we go through the process we went through last year, or if we have this massive group, I mean, you're talking 20 people, 25 people, you can't have a constructive budgetary conversation with 25 people, in my opinion.
I agree with you. I guess my only thought and comment is, I mean, that process happens to a lesser degree now, where we get the town administrators together and the superintendent and the business manager, and we all lay out. I give them information like this, and I talk at a very high level.
Does it
about
go anywhere? Because
No. Well, and they do the same. They present their needs, and the town administrators all talk about what our abilities to pay are. assuming there's no override. And there's some sharing of information there, but then we get into a political process. So, if this adding a selectman into the process can derail the eventual political process, that would be helpful.
Well, that's my intent. I mean, if adding a selectman to it increases the political process, keep us out. It's just that.
Well, the political process now gets in there in April. When we all have these nice discussions, and then there's a.
They need. I'm just speaking for my opinion. I mean, they need to come to us with a realistic budget that reflects accurately computed expenses. They don't want to see a $500,000 fluff in health insurance. They've redone their health insurance package. They've got substantial savings. They've gone to the Medicare component for retirees. Long overdue. They need to reflect that in the operating budget in real terms, not what they did last year when we, in one conversation, we're talking about $1 million difference. And then what made it even worse is when, if I remember, it was you, me, chairman of the finance committee, superintendent, and the finance guy, I think the 5 of us, going through that budget, and we all came up with different numbers. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, it took a while for you guys to get the right number that I have, but I remember.
Oh, we won't go there. I'm just trying to find some way to mitigate this. If anybody's got a better idea, go for it. There's no pride of ownership to this. We just have to deal with it.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. I like your idea. I think.
See, I think the addition of the chairs of the boards, as much as I don't want to disempower myself, but the chairs of the boards can be the bear in the closet that's there. The town administrators have to frankly act reasonable with Liz and with what's his name, and Jim and Rob from Plainville and whoever from Rentham can pound on the desk and be unreasonable and bring the urgency of the issue to bear in a way. I think that the administrators who have to be
work with them.
Yeah, you got to work with them.
Yeah, no,
because this is a problem. This is a huge problem. This number is a huge problem.
It can't happen. I mean, and I'm sure Rentham and Plainville will see the same.
And some of the
fair, Liz and Paul, the business manager, said that they realize it's an unrealistic number, but they're asking what they think is the right thing for educational purposes, but they realize it's an unrealistic number. It's the process we're going to go through every year.
I would consider adding a member of the regional school committee, though, just because, they are the governing body.
Actually, I said that.
Yeah, you did.
I did. I apologize. I did say the chair of the school committee. Yeah, the regional school committee. Absolutely.
But,
and as I say, I don't care what or who. That's not my point. It's just that we've got to have a conversation that has some teeth to it, that frames a reasonable expectation on the part of all parties.
Right.
That we can all, we may not fine tune it, we may not get to the final dollar, but we got to get in the ballpark.
Yeah, because presenting us a budget which is irrelevant doesn't do anything.
And then presenting it in a way that says that if we get down to something that is relevant, it's very hard to discern exactly what the impact is. And that's the difficulty we had last year.
Yeah, and the trickle-down effect for me is, and this is, again, the same thing that happens every year, is that if I have to work, depending on which of these numbers I'm working with, dramatically changes what I can do with the rest of the budget.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and.
Well, I mean, if you, dramatically is an understatement.
Yeah. So, I'm all for if we can get some closure on the big part of the budget, and then I can work on the little pieces.
Well, what do you think? I mean, should we propose this as an alternative? Suggest it?
Part of the process.
Well, I'm not saying it's the final. I mean, no one is empowered in that room to.
Right.
Only the school committee is empowered to bring forward their recommendation. So, but
another step.
I'm just looking for something in between where we are today versus when they show up here.
Mm-hmm.
That gets us closer to something where we can all speak the same language. I mean, Rentham's number was what, 1.2 million?
Bigger than ours.
Yeah.
In Plainville, we had the smallest percentage increase.
Percentage increase, but not the smallest number. Plainville had the
Right.
smallest number.
What do you
Okay.
think?
Nobody
Well,
lives
what do
there.
should we try it?
Yeah.
I mean, all I can do is say no. I'm sure Bob would participate. Is Bob the chair over in Plainville?
One of the Bobs, right?
Yeah, Rose, I think, though, not fantasy. I think Rob.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rob.
I'm sure he would participate, knowing Rob. I don't know who the chair is in Rentham.
It's Joe Posh.
Yeah. Same guy from last year.
Same guy? Ah, okay.
So, like the moderator, I didn't go to school for math. So you're telling me that we got a $500,000 problem, more or less, even with the low Keyfield number,
Yes.
Yes.
in that ballpark. We have surmounted these kinds of numbers before.
Actually, it's a smaller number than we've had in the past.
The other issue, and I don't know what the number is that we're gonna have to overcome, is snow and ice. We spent over $100,000 on the big storm, the 2-foot storm. So,
Too bad we didn't think last year to put more money in it. Be less of a problem to
good thing we
overcome.
thought I had to save some free cash for that, though.
Touche.
I'm not biting. I'm not biting.
Check my
Okay.
notes on that. So,
Oh, sorry.
It's just throwing stuff all around.
Guard your pen.
Yeah, I got my pen.
I was gonna invite Mr. McGee in to talk about these other articles to our next meeting, if that's, unless you don't want to even.
You in under the discussion items? Or-
No, back to the,
back to the,
Appropriations.
back to your add-on
The
sheet?
roads and the bridge.
the vice chairman switched topics on us,
Okay.
as is his right.
This is his habit.
You want to take a motion, close the warrant? Strike some of these? What is your,
I don't, I'm not ready to strike any at this time, are you? Are you?
I'm not. It's a-
Well, I suppose we should do a motion to close the warrant.
Okay.
Well, I'm surprised you're not the one insisting on that. You wanna leave it open?
Because I want to strike things, but.
Well, then say so. What do you want to,
Edit. No.
what do you want to strike?
No. We have to allow the people who work so hard on these things to have their.
Well, are you talking about striking ones that are submitted by other boards?
Yes. Who's submitting the DPW appropriation articles? Would that be you, Mr. Town Administrator?
sure, yes.
Or would it be us? It's not him, right? It's one of us.
Well, department head could submit an article.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Not that I mean, I wouldn't pass the buck on to him, but
well, let me ask the question again, because I guess I didn't hear the answer. Number 3,
yeah, I was prepared to strike that. I mean, we can just
strike that.
one.
I mean, are we in agreement? All right, so that's off the list.
Number 4.
Number
Isn't
4
that
should be
just
off.
part of his water budget?
That should be off the list.
No. Well, because you brought up a question about, and I agree with you, that is there revenues to support that? Yes, but there's no budget item to do that, so.
The water budget is voted up or down, yes or no, whole thing.
Right, and we don't have a line item.
Oh, why can't
There
you
is
put a
no
line? Why
item in
can't
the
you put a
water
line?
budget. There's just,
Well, there's line items for all the other, well, you're right. There's one line item that says expense budget, but the details behind that there are expenses that are encumbered to pay for a whole bunch of other things, none of which is the $50,000 for engineering.
does
But-
he have revenue to support the 50,000?
Did we vote that budget? The
Yeah, I
water
thought we
budget for
did.
next year? We voted the rates.
You voted the rates.
Now, I know the rates were
You did not vote
predicated.
the budget.
We did not vote the budget, so you could add that line
Add
item to the
50,000.
budget.
Well, I'm talking about the well, if you, oh,
Shouldn't
sorry.
it be in the budget?
I'm
Right.
thinking about FY13. Okay, so we'll add it to the FY14 budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's not going to do this in
You should have just said that.
April, is he?
Well, I thought we were saying that.
Yeah, I
Anyway,
apologize.
okay,
My-
all right.
My mistake.
If you want to get Medway Branch and Barnstable Road done, you want to separate them from DPW parking lot and transfer station parking.
Yeah, those should definitely be different, if not
Mm-hmm.
motions, they'd be different articles.
And I'm okay with Medbury Branch and Barnstable, but I can't support the DPW parking lot until we know what we're going to do there.
What about transfer station parking though?
You know, I don't view that as an imminent. I may be missing something, but I'm transfer station.
I think
every weekend.
the transfer station and Medway Branch, and that's the whole area.
You're talking about
right?
the intersection.
Yeah, those two go together. So
Okay, so you're not
that's part
talking,
of that's a $65,000 project. The bottom of Barnstable Road, and this is all
They're just
drain.
three
They're all
projects.
oh, then I
drainage
misunderstood you. I thought you were talking about the actual area inside the transfer station.
Oh, I am. That the first one being the transfer station parking lot, and kind of Medway Branch right out in front of the transfer station.
But those are two different.
That's one. He put together one budget for that, $65,000 for those two, because they're connected. Because the drainage.
Does that get you all the way to Tucker?
No, couldn't.
I can't. I don't think so, but I can check.
Not for that
Well,
cheap, doesn't seem like
can we agree we leave 1 and 2 on minus the DPW parking lot for now,
For now, yeah.
and we'll strike 3 and 4?
I think there are roads in town, though, that are much worse than Transfer Station, Midway Branch, and even Barnstable. Fruit Street has become Lake Street Part 2. It's almost a dirt road in parts.
Yeah, Fruit Street from heading up, in front of Jane and Paul's and that whole area.
Right, it's terrible.
Yep. I think Bob was trying to fund some of that last year when he did the whole, or I guess it was 2 years ago when he did the whole Indian Hill
Okay.
section, but couldn't get it in
Yeah,
the
let's.
budget.
Are there others you want to strike?
Nothing that we're putting forward.
All right. Scott?
No.
Okay.
So you're going to have a motion to close with those three strikes?
I'll leave that to the pleasure of Mr. Garrity.
I move to close the line.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. What day, Marion, has the lottery got us reopening the warrant?
Tonight, did we,
Tell me you don't have a lottery going on that.
I have no, I have none.
what about the duplicate? The two for zoning bylaw study committee and Bob each sent us one about,
I mean, I had, can you friendly amend that was kind of a Scribner's error.
Well, you can clean that up. I mean, we don't have to do any action on that tonight. Unless you're, no, it's not.
that's just the warrant.
All right. We're going to skip over the Route 115 issue, which is really not an issue that's before us. I had put that on in anticipation of it becoming an issue, but it hasn't at this point, so we'll let it go.
We did have a request under action items, which is the next item, to waive the fee from Norfolk Wine and Spirits
Oh, yeah.
Due to a hardship.
due to a
Right.
hardship.
I move to waive the refund the fee already paid by Norfolk Wine and Spirits.
Do you want to explain to folks at home why we're doing that?
The owners have a hardship, and there will be a new fee paid by the new
Right.
new occupant. So the town's not really losing money that it deserves.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I think the intent was to try and have the transfer done at the end of December,
Right.
so we wouldn't have received this if
Right.
the ABCC had approved it.
We'll be getting that money.
Yeah.
Right. The prior owner paid a full fee, which is substantial, for this particular year, and all in the process of trying to sell the establishment. It didn't go through at the end of the year, as you said. It went through at the end of January. So, in essence, we've collected 2 full fees for 1 year, which doesn't seem very fair. So,
Motion's made.
is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Status of the truck exclusion, we expect to hear back in March from the state, so hopefully that will happen soon. And we did have one late request, so you'll have to decide whether or not this is an emergency request or not, but we had to have a resignation from a registrar late last week, Mr. McFeely, because we appointed him to the Norfolk County Advisory Board.
Right.
So he can't be a registrar if he's appointed to another board, so he resigned. Democratic Committee has recommended another individual. So if your town clerk would certainly love to have another registrar on board as soon as possible. So if you are interested in approving that tonight, although it wasn't on the agenda, that's something we could do.
Well, I think we either have to approve it tonight, it was an unanticipated issue, or we have to call a special meeting to do it, because he has to have it done in order to certify his papers. He is a candidate for school committee. As I understand it,
So he can't.
he can't certify
He can't
the pa- he can't certify his own
And you
papers.
need 3 signatures?
And he needs signatures.
Does,
So-
this individual is also on another town board, though.
No.
No, he's not.
He's not
He was
anymore?
not, he was not, that committee was never reestablished.
No. Well, then I move to appoint David Rosenberg as a member of the Board of Registrars.
As the Democratic representative.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And this was, just so everyone knows, this was at the recommendation of the Democratic Town Committee,
Correct.
as is there. We could have appointed somebody else, as long as we asked the recommendation. Could have.
Right. This has come from the Democratic Committee.
I know Marion expressed an interest, but,
Oh, Susan Rentham now, though, right?
yeah.
It's only a otherwise she had my vote.
So rent the light.
Okay?
We've covered everything on the agenda.
How about acceptance of the minutes?
Except acceptance of minutes.
So I move that we accept the minutes as written on January 22nd and February 5th, 2013.
Second.
All in favor?
No.
Aye.
I love the way Rob puts a lot of deliberation into every vote. It's well done.
It's been an entertaining night, gentlemen. Can we agree that in our next meeting, March 12th, right?
Yes, that's also my
That
birthday.
between now and then, however each of us wants to do it, that we that we come to a vote on what we're going to recommend on Old Town Hall.
Recommend, okay.
It's got to get done. Agreed?
Yep.
Agreed.
I know the building commissioner inspector has some ideas. So
He
it'd be
does.
Good for each of
Yeah.
everyone to talk about.
But we can each do it our own way and seek whatever input we want, but we need to make a decision and bring that forward to the town. The town can agree or disagree. We just recommend.
Do you have any other, do you have any other thoughts other than selling off the building and some portion of the land? I mean, is there any, we've
Well,
in the past
I know we looked at it extensively for any potential use for public safety or DPW, other than the garages is currently, which isn't a big deal.
Right.
And we couldn't find any use. You were part of that, Jack.
No,
we
yeah,
couldn't find any use that was even practical for that piece of property, for those facilities. Recreation's got alternatives now. Plus, it's not safe. It's just not safe.
When you say for
Building
the
is not-
property or for the building, I mean, nothing else could fit, I mean, you couldn't find any use for the property? I know the buildings it has to come down, or should come
Right.
down, but, you know.
We
but not the
could
property itself.
not. I mean, there are no foreseeable needs. We're just a bunch of people. I mean, if you've got one,
I don't have
come
any,
on
no,
up
I
with
just
it.
didn't
But
know. I mean,
I mean,
how
we
big is the
could,
pro-
Rob,
the
you.
property
I mean,
itself?
we could not come up
But
with a
the fire
single
station.
foreseeable need that property, because of its current configuration,
yeah,
that could be usable. We looked at it originally for public safety. You know,
Right.
Could we?
It doesn't fit
And
for
we
that,
even
I mean.
looked at separating police and fire, and
for public safety, there's no real good use because there's the wetland restrictions in the back. There's no good way to.
can't make the turn
Can't get the
for
wet-
the
you
trucks.
can't-
You can't make
yeah.
the turn.
Um,
Because you have to have front and back access.
Right,
and
right.
It just didn't work.
the things that have come up over the years, and I don't want to cloud the issue, but veterans facility, and then community center is the only other items I've heard any discussion about. But we've never had anybody willing to look at the funding for those types of facilities.
Well, I mean, that's the question, you know, is if you don't want to give away an asset because it is located, it's a nice location.
Yep.
And we don't want to, you know, I mean, if the issue is just dealing with getting rid of the building, then we deal with just getting rid of the building. If we think that it's an asset that
And
can
hold
be
on
of
to
some,
the property.
and hold on to the property. I mean, that's alternative one. Alternative two is sell the whole thing with rights to the back pond. You know, alternative three is create an A&R lot on the front using the property to the right, whether it is or is not in the B1 district. And it is a viable option that includes the town hall, retain the parking lot and the garage. I mean, if there's a fourth option, I don't know what it is.
No, I'm just, sorry, again, I don't mean to cloud the issue.
No,
I'm curious, so I was trying to just get through this for the next 2 weeks, if there are any other thoughts out there.
well, we've been talking about this for 4 years.
At least, yeah.
And the criticism when we brought it before was that we didn't provide a definitive plan, and that's justified. They're right, we did not. So this time we will.
And you know, maybe we'll get told to go back to square
And
one.
we may, and that's okay, you know, it's just, we gotta do something.
Just think of how wonderful it'll be to wake up tomorrow and see your daughter without her braces.
You are correct.
It would be spoiled for you to go see her tonight, Jeff.
Motion to adjourn.
Not as happy as she's gonna be.
I signed, you guys signed all this?
We don't
Two?
sign these. You
No, yeah, I
just-
did sign one, but you guys
just
have to
you.
sign. You have to
I
sign.
move that.
Do you have any
now
other
adjourn.
issues? Wait a minute, before you go, do you have any other issues? Were you gonna adjourn?
I was moving to adjourn.
Do you have any other issues that you would like to talk about?
No, I think I'm okay.
I'm fine.
Jack, did we miss anything?
No, I want to hear what date certain he's going to adjourn to. He's only going to take some time off between now and then. Punchy tonight. He said you're going to adjourn to a date certain.
March 5th.
March 12th.
You certain?
You know, this is my only meeting.
I'm not here, so.
Oh, well, Marion's not here, so let's do March 12th. Lord knows the business of the town.
We had it March 5th because we originally had this
Right.
meeting scheduled during school vacation.
We have changed this series of March and February meetings about 22 times. It
Pretty
feels
close,
like.
pretty close.
So I move that when we adjourn today, we adjourn to meet again March 12th, at 7 o'clock.
I will follow up with the planning board on this trail issue. I will be glad to own that, to be sure we
Maybe
get
you're
it.
not going to be here.
Because Pulte's question, I mean, this has been, there's been so many left turns on this, it's not fair. They're actually the innocent party in this, and
Good payroll.
we want to be sure it's done right. Scott, anything else?
No, I already put the motion. I think I second the motion to adjourn.
Sorry about that. Did you second that?
Yeah.
Oh,
Rob,
sorry.
dates it. Just
All
turn
in
the vote.
favor?
Aye.
Thank you for joining us this evening, and we will convene again on March 12th. Thank you. Good night.